as the time is here, we'll call the meeting to order. And Mrs. Nash, could you do a roll call, please? Present.
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 Here. Present.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay, if we could have everybody stand, and Mrs. Boland will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now have a moment of silence. We ask that you keep the following individuals in your prayers who have passed away, in your thoughts and your prayers. Edward Walsh, retired Newport Public School teacher and principal. Paul Winthrop, retired Newport Public Schools business manager. Michael Burns, uncle of Superintendent Colleen Burns Germain and former Newport School Committee member. Rick Conti, uncle of Lisa Butterbaugh, school nurse teacher at Thompson. Kathleen O'Connell, aunt of Arthur Bell, PE teacher at Thompson. Rosemary Nunes, aunt of Brian Torrecenta, social studies teacher at TMS. And Christina Ruth Pisare, aunt of Susan Jenga, secretary at Thompson. Please keep them in your, we'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll now move on. I believe Josephine's down the end to give us an update on the student activities at Rogers.
Yes, Mr. Gomes, I am, to the best of my ability. To begin, mock trial ended a very excellent season last Wednesday. They were narrowly defeated by the Wheeler School. In fact, this was one of the narrowest defeats in the team's history. Students are getting ready for a busy spring sports season. Sports include baseball, softball, sailing, track, and much more. In April of 2020, there will be a student trip to Greece. There are a lot of students interested in this, and they are already planning fundraisers and dates, which I'll get back to once they get those solid. Freshmen are applying to represent Rogers High School in Shimoda, Japan, our sister city, in May. Tomorrow is a half day for parent-teacher conferences. Great for us students, maybe not for the parents, but seniors presented their senior projects last week, checking off another box on the graduation to-do list. And Skills USA is hosting a spaghetti dinner fundraiser at Fenner Hall in Newport the 5th of April to raise money to send state winners to Kentucky for nationals. Tickets are $20 per person. The cost per student for this trip is $1,300. So you can imagine how important a fundraiser like this is to the program. And that's all, so thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Josephine?
What date was that again?
It's the 5th of April, and I'll send out a link because you can pre-register, so that'd be great.
Any other questions for Josephine on her presentation? All right,
I do have one, just in case we can't get it in tonight, but the fashion show, if you're familiar with, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So there's a big Night to Remember fundraiser for both the NACTech building, as well as it will be going towards caps and gowns for seniors, and senior prom, also very important. So this is a key fundraiser for all of us, and it will be taking place the 22nd of March. And we'll have local and also designers from Boston and New York coming to design us. It will include student models as well as professional models, and I believe a lot of the NACTech cosmetology and also just student volunteers will be involved. So it's really a school fundraiser. So there's been some news about it in the newspapers, and you can contact Jen Carter for tickets. So definitely have a
Do
look.
you know the website?
I don't off the top of my head, but if you look it up online, it comes right up,
Yeah.
and you order online.
Through
I've done it,
Eventbrite.
yeah, I've done it, but I
Yes.
just thought you'd know the
Eventbrite.
name.
Yes. So definitely have a look out for that.
I think Morrison has posted it.
Any other questions for Josephine tonight? Okay? Great, thanks, Josephine.
Of course.
We'll move into our resolution and certificates of achievement, and we'll recognize, next up, we'll recognize the Thompson girls basketball team on their very successful season that they had. The girls, along with their 17-0 season, went on to win the Eastern Division for the first time since 2012. They won the Hut Thanksgiving Tournament for the second year in a row as well. And as I said, they were undefeated with a 17-0 record and went on to win the state championship, the first state championship in Thompson Middle School history. So let's have a big hand, and I'll call them up. Girls, when you come up, Mrs. Sylvia will give you a certificate and stay together as a group so you can get one group picture at the end, all together up here in front of us. So as I call your name, please come up. Maya Daly. Sydney Newsom. Ellie Margolis. Denisha Cherry. Maya Brooks. Alicia Abdullah. Ajane Santos. Julia Conley. Lillian Riley. Justice Connor. Nevaeh Cooper. And I see Maeve Crowley back there that I forgot, and I apologize. I think I've gotten them all now, including Maeve, who I skipped. I apologize. Head coach is Casey Gallo, and the assistant coach was Erin McGloin. If they'd like to come up and join the girls. Again, let's give them a big hand and a big round of applause. Okay, all set? Very good, girls.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thanks. Next up on our recognitions and certificates this evening is, we are going to award Rhode Island State House Art Award recipients. On the 27th of February, the following art students represented Newport Public Schools at the State House in Providence as part of the Senate Arts exhibit with their selected artwork. Besides their artwork on display in the State House Rotunda, they each received a Senate citation. So congratulations to the following students and their art teachers for representing our school district well in Providence. So as I call your name again, come up and you can stay as a group and have your pictures taken. We'll do Miss Icott's art students first. Etta Devich. 7th grade at TMS. Rosalie Valen, 7th grader at TMS. And we have Mrs. Sheehan's art students, Ruby Machado, 4th grader at Pell. We have Julia Guinan, 3rd grader at Pell. And Catherine Warner, a 10th grader at Rogers High School. Very good. And once again, we'll give you a big hand and say congratulations to our winners. Okay. Oh, good. Thank you very much. Good job. Nice job, girls. Next item on the agenda brings us into presentations. This evening, we have a presentation by Ms. Tracy Shea, Executive Director of the Newport Community School, and she'll give us an update on their current programs and services that are being provided. So, Ms. Shea? Oh, okay. You can introduce them as you go along.
So I want to thank everyone for having us here tonight. Again, it's just not myself as the executive director, but also our entire professional full-time staff is with us tonight. I'm just going to start off. I know you all received a pretty comprehensive report of services for the past 6 months since July 1. But just a little refresher about community school. So we were founded in 2001. We serve Thompson and Rogers students. We are a nonprofit organization that's embedded within the school. In 2019, the Newport Community School expanded its services to include health, wellness, and family support. We felt as an organization it was very important that we look at that in a very strategic and targeted way. And we do that through our NCS Connects program, which you will hear more about later. And in 2010, the Newport Community School incorporated the Aquidneck Island Adult Learning Center program to round out our comprehensive services. Community school has a long track record of results. We've been very fortunate over the years to share a partnership with Newport Public Schools. And so tonight, what you're going to hear is from each individual staff person in their area of expertise, in their area of service. So we're going to start with Kelsey Dugan, who is going to talk about Rogers High School.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. I'm the program coordinator for Newport Community School at Rogers High School. This is my 5th school year there. And as Tracy said, we run year-round. So during the school year, we have our academic lab, which runs from 2 to 4, which has Rogers High School teachers to help our students catch up or have any makeup work that they need to do. So all of that is available. We also help with the Kids Cafe to have the supper program in the afternoons and additional enrichment programming during the school year. We also run credit recovery during the summer and quarterly. So during the summer, again, with the support of the district teachers, it's run in the month of July. Same goes for when it's run during the school year. We do also offer ELOs, so what those are their extended learning opportunities for credit. So if a student has an interest in something that we might not offer during the school year, they're able to, with RIDE criteria, do a project for half a credit towards an elective. So it doesn't replace their core class of an English or a math, but it does offer them half-year credit towards an elective. As Josephine pointed out, we also do oversee the senior project, so that was last week's big event at the high school, and we started doing that last year, and we're doing it again this year, and it's really great. It's a graduation requirement, but the students do a really nice job of picking something they're interested in and really running with it, so we support them as best as they can. For that graduation requirement, as Josephine went through, you do a resume, college essay, letter of intent, a presentation, a thank you letter, and overall you do a project on something that you're passionate about or you would like to pursue in the future. And then we also do transition programming, which is our Rogers 101 and our transition to college program, which is dual enrollment for our Rogers students over up at CCRI. So we kind of do a lot during the year and during the summer, but we do have the support of the district and community school to really make sure that we do meet the needs of the students at Rogers High School.
Thank you. I have one question.
Yes.
I know that we were trying to get more kids to participate in credit recovery. Has that been successful in the last year?
Yeah, so last summer, we had a really, really great summer turnout. So I don't have the numbers offhand, but I can obviously share those if needed. But we did have more students last year, and we had a higher percentage of students complete in that 3 weeks. And then we did offer it quarterly as well. So the quarterly is a little bit trickier, but during the summer, it really did do a lot better than the summer prior. And we used the main building last summer rather than the NACTech building, so we had more space to kind of spread out and not be so on top of each other. So, thank you.
Miss Dugan's amazing with the senior projects. We wouldn't be able to do anything really. She's always there, and she's the one who organized all of the hours. And this is stuff that colleges do. Like, I went to URI, and they said they have their own equivalent of a senior project. So without her, we wouldn't have that. So thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Nice skills.
Hi, I'm Dave Vieira. I am the program coordinator for the Newport Community School at Thompson. Just like Rogers, we oversee all after-school programming at Thompson. It starts with Kids Cafe in the afternoon where the kids get a supper meal. We then move to a homework hour for the kids to complete homework before their enrichment programming, which takes place at 4 o'clock. Those programs are offered to enhance their learning, so we offer things such as technology classes for kids to engage with coding or other technology programs. We also offer fitness programs for kids that want to get in shape or continue their athletics, and we also, and other things such as we have like yoga, we have tons of different program offerings for the kids to sign up for. They self-select, so anywhere between 50 and 60 kids a day stay after school and participate. Every kid does their homework first before their enrichment programming, so we make sure that their homework is done and that their academics are going as best they can. We try to keep in communication with their teachers as well, so teachers know who's staying after school, and if they have makeup assignments that they have to send in, we communicate with them as much as possible to make sure everyone is doing what they're supposed to do. So that's the after-school program at Thompson. We have kids there until 6 o'clock at night. We have bus rides home. We make sure that they're fed and get their homework done before they go home for the night. We do the fun activities too on Fridays. We always have ice skating. We have movie nights. We do the activity nights where we bring a DJ in and let the kids have a dance, and we do dodgeball in the gym. There's so many different activities that we want to make sure the kids are having fun while they're also getting their learning completed. Over the summer, we have 3 summer programs that we run for Thompson, in addition to our academic recovery program, which I'll talk about later. Summer Success is a great program that takes place at Salve every summer. We go 4 weeks, starting in July and going until the first week of August, where the kids that are affected by summer slide in their reading and math levels can come for 4 weeks and do some schoolwork, a little different than typical traditional school. We do more hands-on activities, try to get them out in the community, get them out on the cliff walk, let them enjoy their summer while also doing some reading and math to make sure that they stay at their levels through that long 8 weeks that we have. Also Friday field trips, and they get the great food, as do I, at Salve for breakfast and lunch every day, which is really, really awesome for them. It's an experience like no other for these kids. They have access to a college campus, and I think it's really great to see them have that opportunity to be down at Salve. Students are recommended by the guidance counselors based on their STAR scores. We look at kids that are on the fence of, it's called the on-watch category. So we try to, the kids that are just below their grade level, and we try to either at least maintain through the summer, or if we can get some gains in their scores, we try to do that as well. So that's the Salve program. It runs 4 weeks again, and it's a really great program. Thompson 101 is for our incoming grade 5 students to Thompson. So it's a transition program from here to Thompson so they can get used to their new building before the new school year starts. And moving on up is from grades 5 to 6, so that helps students get ready for the schedule change that they go through between the elementary model and the middle school model. And get to hear some more from me. I am also the coordinator of the NCS Connects program, which is our basic needs support program for both Rogers and Thompson. These supports that we have in place for food, clothing, anything a family might need throughout the school year to make sure that their kids are as successful as possible in school. We try to provide every service that we can to make sure that, again, families are provided for. At Thompson, we have an emergency food shelter for families to request some food bags from us. We bring it out to them. We don't send it home with the kids unless the kids request it. Sometimes kids do request to bring it home themselves. So we have the community coverage there for clothing as well. If we notice the kids are coming to school every day with the same clothes on, we try to just make sure that they have what they need, and teachers know to refer them to us or to reach out to me to get some support that way. We have Smiles Dental Clinics once or twice a month where the EBCAP dentists come to school and do cleanings. They even do extractions sometimes at the school. So we try to help with their dental care. We have the CARES program, which is the McKinney-Vento grant. So we help out with doing homeless family intakes and making sure that they're provided for and that they have everything that they need while trying to get back on their feet. Quarterly academic recovery runs at Thompson. We do it obviously once every quarter towards the end to try to make up any failing grades for their core classes or their exploratory classes. Last quarter, we had 86 students referred, 59 attended, and 30 improved a grade, or at least one grade. And even if they do come, sometimes they don't do enough to make that grade up, but sometimes they can raise their average, or it just gives them an opportunity to learn the skills that they need to be back on track. And also in the summer, we have academic recovery as well. So in the summer, we do a program where it's based on, towards the end of the year, if you failed your classes, you can make those grades up and move on to the next grade. So we have a lot of services that we provide at Thompson and also to Rogers. Keeps us very busy, but it's really good work, and we're happy to have the support of the district and happy to be here to help as best we can. Thank you.
Just a minute, I think there's a question for you, Dave.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yes.
Well, there's a comment and a question.
All right.
So one, I work at Salve and I see the kids every summer, and it's just great to see them.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to see younger people on the campus. And totally selfishly, when is Thompson 101 this year?
Oh, gosh, do we have the dates? I don't think it'll be, no, that's Summer Success. Thompson 101 it'll be in August.
Thank you.
I don't have the solid date yet, but I will.
It's totally selfish to have a fourth grader going into fifth. I just
Planning
wanna know.
ahead, and nothing wrong with that. We'll have that nailed down very soon, I'm sure. We're planning
you.
now for summer, so we'll let you know.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Evans from the Aquidneck Island Adult Learning Center program of Newport Community School. And we are a full-service adult learning center, and we provide adult education, vocational, and job training and job readiness programs to Newport County youth and adults. We currently have 656 students enrolled in our courses, which include day and evening GED classes, English as a second language, conversation classes, learning labs, CNA classes, home health aid, teacher assistant, medication or med tech aid, youth mental health, CPR, pipe fitting, plumbing, electrical, food safety and sanitation, and transition to college in partnership with CCRI. We also serve under 18 youths, and we currently have 15 Rogers High School students enrolled in GED classes on ALP waivers at no cost to the district. We have funding from the Governor's Workforce Board for Rogers High School Certified Nursing Assistant classes through Real Skills RI funding. We also have Real Pathways funding for our CNA and Med Tech classes. I see one of our graduates over there in the front seat. Hi, Rose. To sum it up, we not only change our students' lives, but those of their families. Just today, we had a student come in, and she had graduated from our CNA program last year. She enrolled in our GED courses. She took her last GED class today, and she completed, and she signed up for the Med Tech class that we run in partnership with URI that starts tomorrow. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leary.
Just have one question, please.
Yeah, Ken.
You almost got away.
That's right.
It's an easy question, though. Being in the service industry in Newport for over 40 years, they used to have a class, and maybe you still do, I'm not sure, for people to get certified out there for the health part of it, like in kitchens, you have to have it. They can
Yes,
run-
we actually just had 23 students come in last night and complete that class and take the exam. That's the Serve Safe program.
Chef says, correct.
Yes, yep. And
Now,
this-
does, used to be a teacher here from Rogers in the health, he does do
Mr.
it?
Mackin?
Yes,
Yes, he's still there. He taught.
he's still doing it?
Yes, he is.
So I know 3 people or 4 people just went, they went over to North Kingstown to take it. I was kind of surprised.
Well, some people go over to East Greenwich because there's different offerings over there, but the state has just changed all the regulations for food certification. So people who are recertifying now, they have to take an exam. They may
Right.
have held their license for 50 years and just come in, taken an 8-hour class, but now they have to take a 2-hour exam.
I was studying for that for like 4 hours with a few people down at the restaurant this
Yeah.
week, so I got it down pat.
Yeah, okay, well, come in, come in.
It's difficult. There's like 90 questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
Wait.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, see, now we've got you. The ESL classes, are they open to all members
Oh,
of the
yes,
public?
I'm glad you brought that up. We have, in 2 weeks, we have a new session starting.
Okay.
So if anyone would like to refer anyone to our program, we have the dates and times for registration and enrollment on our website, newportcommunityschool.org. We also have postings on our Facebook page as well.
Thank you.
And please refer and like us on Facebook, all right? I'm sorry, I see you called me back. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Newsom. I'm the behavior specialist over at Rogers High School. Daily, I'm helping Miss Zilli, I'm only kidding. Miss Zilli's fine. So daily, my day starts in the cafeteria. We're assessing how kids are that day, the overall pulse of the school. You can tell a lot in the cafeteria. That leads us, after that, going into the office and just checking in with stuff that happened yesterday, kids that had problems, parents. Throughout the day, we're speaking to kids, some of that, had a behavior in a class, maybe in the hall. We're hoping in the dean's office, we're less punitive and more about teaching kids how to make better decisions, whether it's with peers, classmates, classwork, etc. This is, throughout the day we're helping with, my day will consist of not only dealing with kids, but also making calls to parents as well. So if there's any questions, I could be more specific.
Okay.
In terms of restorative behavior, could you kind of walk us through what you would do with a student who's been found to have violated some policy, some procedure? How would you work that?
So, without giving names, I give you an example. We had 2 kids come up to the office today. 2 kids who I think have made great strides from the beginning of the year to till now. So 2 boys were obviously conversating during class while they should be paying attention. So what we try to do is walk them through the scenario again, hoping they'll see their mistake and, excuse me. Just got caught in my. So the boys, so basically what we did with the boys was talk them through the mistake they made, and each boy admitted that one called out in class, the other kid didn't have his binder. So I have to say that Rogers gets this label like there's catastrophic things going on there. There aren't. These are the behaviors that we're seeing. Good kids making small mistakes who need some guidance on how to handle things appropriately. So these boys don't get consequences. We just try to teach them how to handle those mistakes. And we've seen these two boys who struggled in the 8th grade are now passing, doing well, and can help other students.
Just out of curiosity, how many do you see a day?
It really depends. I would say at worst, Dean's office is going to see maybe 20 kids, maybe. I would say on average, it's about 10. I would say 1 in 10 is something that, requires any kind of relevant discipline. Most of it is just talking kids through it, talking them back to class, teaching them how to actually say the right thing and when to say things, just common things, So we think we have a great school over there. We got some great kids who make, the majority of their decisions are awesome. Josephine sees it every day. I think we got a host of Rogers teachers in the front who make my job easy as well. So we think we're doing pretty well over there.
And last question, anyone on your team speak Spanish?
Yes. So we have Anna Gomez in the dean's office. She has been, you can't even put a figure on how much she's helped us with students who, English is not their first language. She's helping me better communicate with them. So she's been nothing but helpful. And I know those kids, I think I go back to early in the morning. Those kids who are sitting with each other are looking for her to enter that cafeteria every morning. And as soon as they see her there, they're much more comfortable about their day. So you can't really measure what she's doing there just by being there. So we're lucky to have her.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Frank?
Well, I just have a comment, and that's that, he's a friend. I think that's what makes the difference, is that I've never personally been in a combative mode with Newsom yet.
Just yet.
Mr. Newsom, but I know that, and I hear from my friends that these guys are like role models. So I feel like there's no reason not to listen to you, because you're always in the hallways, everybody's always saying hello, and it makes the atmosphere light, which is important, I think. So kudos to you. We're lucky to have you.
Well, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Louie. I'm the behavior specialist at Thompson Middle School. I'm the only behavior specialist, not last name Newsom. So basically, my day consists of start of my day, 7:15. I'm outside in the courtyard where students get off the bus. I supervise the 7th, 6th, and 5th grade in the back. Once we go into the school at about 5 or 7, I head down to the tardy table where I man the tardy table, greet those kids that come in, make sure they have their passes to get to class, kind of put a face to a name for a lot of kids who come in chronically tardy. Then at 8:30, once I lock all the doors, I go into my office and we begin doing our absentee phone calls. For any student that is absent, unexcused without a phone call, I do all of 7th and 8th grade. I call each and every home personally to try to find out whether that is excused absence or not. All the meanwhile, we're dealing with referrals that come in because they often do begin early in the day. At 10:40, we begin lunches. Now, in the meantime, we try to be in the hallway. Me and Mr. Canini from the dean's office, we try to be in the hallway during passing of all classes. 10:40 begins first lunch. We're in lunches, supervising lunches from 10:40 to about 11:55. At that point, I transition. I go outside. I supervise both 5th grade clusters for their recesses from 12 to 12:40. Then it's back into the dean's office to deal with referrals that come in. The dean's office at Thompson so far this year has dealt with 2,000 dean referrals from the start of the school year, so it's pretty busy. On average, we see probably about 24 to 35 kids daily. A lot of them are chronic offenders. It's about 10% of the kids do about 90% of the problems. So that day continues till about 2:30, where we're dealing with interventions with all sorts of students. We have a diverse population. We have fifth graders who tend to be on the younger end of the spectrum, and eighth graders who feel they're too big for school sometimes and want to be more mature than they really are. So at that point, we go to about 2:30. I go outside, supervise bus departures, and if Mr. Canini's not in, I run detentions, and that's pretty much the consistency of my day. Any questions?
Of course. This is me. I have all sorts of questions, always. What are the referrals for, generally?
We deal with a lot of referrals that come in, mostly kids just not being able to focus, having to be redirected multiple times in a classroom, disrupting the learning of others. At that point, it's the teacher decides, we can't have one affect the many. In a classroom of 23, if you have one kid that you constantly have to address, it's taken away from the learning of other students. So they get sent down to the dean's office where they remain for the period. Multiple infractions in a day will land a student in the in-school retention room for 3 periods where they can earn their way back out if the work is completed. All the while, contacts are going home, contacts to parents, guardians, whoever. We feel that the best thing is an open line of communication. There's a lot of parents that, we're on a first name basis because I've called them as many times as I call people and, oh, why are you calling me? I don't get a complex about that. But we feel that we try to engage the parent and allow them to be part of the solution for the problems. Help us help your child. Most parents are very receptive to that, some are not. So it's a constant flux, but we do communicate on all referrals to the dean's office.
And then how does a child go from referral to detention? What's the...
Depending on the infraction, we have levels of consequence, whether it be minor infractions, get a silent lunch, where the student comes into the lunchroom, takes their lunch down to the in-school retention room. We also do that for chronic tardy kids, any student in a quarter that is over 4 unexcused tardies. Subsequently, each tardy afterwards, they receive a silent lunch. It's a way to try to deter the tardies. So we go from silent lunch to, if it's an infraction, and a chronic student, they get a night's detention. Night's detention is always 24 hours in advance with a contact to the parent. We do try to work with a lot of parents, especially with transportation issues. If they can't do a certain night, we're open to postponing it to other nights during the week. If it's an egregious offense, at that point, it could be immediate in-school retention or out-of-school suspension.
Okay. For the detentions, do any parents do the detentions with their child?
I've never seen that done. We have had parents come in to sit with kids during the day to monitor their behavior, but it's not the same behavior when the parent's not there.
Right. I'm just saying if a parent has to do a night detention with the child, they might not want to do that again.
Yeah, good luck getting a parent to come in, though. A lot of times we have parents that probably have the Jaws theme song for the ringtone from Thompson, and they just don't choose to pick up the phone when we call. So a lot of times it's messages left. Yeah.
First of all, I want to commend you on the job you do about calling all the students. Calling all the students every day that are absent and I think it's really making a difference, and it's something that we might want to consider for the other 2 schools in terms of getting kids there. And I also wanted to know, have you started, like the restorative justice and the Kingian? Is that pervasive in the whole school, or I've heard that it really hasn't hit off the ground yet?
Yeah, it hasn't infiltrated to the entire school. I mean, you do have teacher personalities that you're going to have to work with around that. But I know that in our office, our biggest thing is to build rapport with kids. And I'm lucky enough that it's not only the kids that, make mistakes and get sent to the dean's office. I'm lucky to do recesses and morning duty and lunches where I get to mingle with some of the top-notch kids, like my dear Josephine here.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, a few years ago. But it's building rapport with these kids, letting them know that they can trust you, letting them know that they can come to you when they have issues that, might be outside of school issues. And this day and age with social media, a lot of outside issues do come into us, do come into the dean's office, where kids are either being cyberbullied or there's outside threats, and kids are afraid to come to school. So if they come in and they know they have somebody they can come talk to, we pretty much try to take care of everything in the moment. We do have a good relationship with our community policing officer, Mary Scott. So we try to make sure that kids know that school's a safe place. School is where they can be for 6 hours, they can be themselves, and they can be comfortable in that. If they have somebody they can talk to, they tend to be a little more relaxed. Any other questions?
Flowers?
Yeah, I just have two comments. One, when you talk about the out-of-school suspensions, that's always something that bothers me. Sometimes I understand, sometimes it has to be done. But that might be what some of the kiddos want. I think you know.
We also have some kids that like the in-school retention room, and they commit, infractions in order to get sent down there as well.
Yeah, they probably figure it's some peace and quiet, you never know. But the out-of-school suspensions, I'm wondering also, do you have many adults participating in the mentoring program that is required?
Unfortunately, we do not. No. I mean, I know 3 mentors that come in for 3 students that I've seen consecutively from grade to grade. But other than that, we don't have a lot of mentors that do come into the building, unfortunately. The time frame is tough for a lot of working professionals to get in there to see a kid maybe during their lunch period.
Yeah, that's the,
Seeing as the lunches are from 10:40 to 11:55, I mean, most people who work a 9-to-5 job won't even have their lunch until noon.
yeah, I was fortunate that the young lady that I was mentoring is graduating this year.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, and since I've known her since 2nd grade, but this is just an aside for any people who are here or who will be watching. If you have the time and the inclination to look into that, because that can provide someone that the young person can really connect with and take some of that, I don't say burden, but takes that, the time that you could spend with some of the other youngsters too.
Yeah,
So it might
absolutely.
be something to look into, and maybe we can start promoting that again. We'll try our best.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Michael Newsom. I'm the behavior support specialist here at Pell Elementary School. Kind of different from, my brother and Chris's day. So our day starts at 8:15, and I'm outside at morning recess with grades 2, 3, and 4. So there's a large amount of kids outside at our recess. And then after 15 minutes, half of those kids go in, and then we have more kids doing our program, our Pell Pump It Up program, where they're still engaging in physical activities for another 10 minutes. And we do that for our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades, and they flip-flop days, which happens. So then when I come into the building after that, I check in with our administrators just to see if there's anything that I need to pay attention to or anything that has come across their desk that we need to focus on for that day, as far as any challenges or any incidents that we need to know about. From that point on, I attempt to walk through every classroom in the building. Part of why I do that is, number one, trying to continue the relationship with every teacher that works here that I need to have, as well as have a relationship with the students, but for them to see me in a different light other than just a student possibly getting removed from class. I want to see them working in their environment, encourage them, support them in that environment, but be able to walk through every classroom in the building. That could take an hour, it could take longer, it depends, because some of the times when you're in the classroom, you are working with the kids, or I'm sitting with the student, or I'm talking to a teacher about things that they might need help with. Because part of my job is to not only support the students, but to support our teachers as well. When that happens, usually we're getting close to our kindergarten lunchtime where I'm more based in the office. There's a possibility some students have had some referrals and have come down to the office so we can, talk about the challenges that they were having throughout the day, whether it's a challenge with just having very difficulty doing work and a student getting frustrated, or it could be something more than that. After our kindergarten lunch and their recess, which is from about 10:50 till about 11:30, we start to move into first and second grade recess, which I'm outside with the second graders on our larger playground, and not only am I there to supervise, but I'm actually there to interact with them. So I play basketball with them, four square, things like that, just to have the students see me in a different light, other than something where they have a challenge and I have to talk to them. When second grade recess is over, then we have third and fourth grade recess, which is a larger amount of kids, so you have about 8 classrooms outside at recess. I'm outside at both of those recesses as well, interacting with kids, supervision. So a lot of my time in this building is with the students, creating those relationships. When all their lunches are over, then I attempt to walk around through the classrooms again. It's not always possible, but that is my attempt and goal every day, to be able to walk through all the classrooms twice. That's how my day is on a daily basis. I am part of our social emotional learning team that meets once a month, where we're trying to come up with, school-based culture, climate, safety initiatives to make our school better, And that team is, on that team are teachers, administrators, social worker, school psychologists. So we all talk about, the climate and culture of our school and how we want to make things better here. From that point on, throughout the end of the day, I make a lot of phone calls to parents. I wouldn't say a lot. Let me rephrase that. I do make phone calls to parents. Part of that is try to keep those relationships and create those relationships. Sometimes we're talking about the challenges that those students had during the day, but it's to creating that relationship, and that's the important thing for me to do, is to create that relationship with that parent so that they're not intimidated by school or their kid coming to school or them coming into the building. I do make those phone calls talking about truancy and things like that, and attendance, because we do want their students here. We do want them to feel like school is the place to be, and this is a safe place for them. So that's primarily how my day runs on an everyday basis. Yes, and I do yes, I do bus duty, dismissal duty in the gym with a very large amount of group of kids in there. But it's fun, I enjoy my job. I love my job. I have fun. I get to be around kids, and they get to be around me. We enjoy each other.
I'll say that I think the kids really enjoy playing basketball with you. That's a big hit. And as a parent of 2 students here, it's nice also to get the call when your child, who you think is a perfect child, is not a perfect child. And the call is a nice wake-up call, because it brings a conversation about in the household. So I've gotten the calls, and
Not many,
No,
not
I think
many
I've
at
gotten
all.
two, but you know what? They bring about a conversation. So those calls for your entire team, you know, Thompson Middle School and Rogers and Powell, those are important because our children are not perfect, even though they think they are. Even though we as parents think they are as well. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other questions for Mr. Newsom? All right, thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So I'm just gonna close out. First, I'd like to thank our entire staff for being here tonight. As you can tell, they are committed, they are compassionate individuals, and they do a fantastic job every single day in helping our students. So I can't thank them enough, but they truly need to be recognized for their work. In closing, so how do we do all this? Community schools, because community school is, as I mentioned earlier, a nonprofit organization. So since our inception in 2001, our budget was a very modest budget of $150,000. Today, fast forward, 2019, our budget is in excess of $1.1 million to invest back into Newport Public Schools students and families and adult learners. There's a chart, that same chart was enclosed in that report that was submitted in conjunction with this presentation. And you can see that we pretty much have an even split between what we spend in youth and what we spend in adults. Majority of our money is generated through various fund development activities, grant investment, individual giving, just as any other nonprofit organization would operate. So again, thank you. If anybody has any other questions, please let me know. But again, any service numbers, I know Ms. Bolin, you had a question about some service numbers related to summer recovery. Those service numbers are actually in that report as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
very much.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I just want to thank Tracy. She's been an unbelievable partner with all her staff. I don't know on a day-to-day basis how we could do what we do every day without the community school, and not only do they help us in the schools, they help us outside the schools, and for a lot of our young people coming into the high school that do not speak English, they've been a great, great partner in that area. So I just want to thank the community school and Tracy for all her hard work, and the team. Great team. Thank you.
Thanks again. The next order of business is our public comment section, and this is a section when we can be addressed by the public on any issue, basically. If there's an issue on the docket tonight, we just ask that you hold your comments until that section of the docket, and everybody's allowed 3 minutes. So, Mrs. Nash, has anybody signed up for public comment?
Hello, I'm Emily Zilli. I've been a member of the Newport Public Schools for 16 years, and I'm a high school chemistry teacher at Rogers. I'm here tonight to address some staffing issues we've had in the science department and some concerns that we've had with how this has impacted our program over the last 2 years. 2 years ago, we lost 0.6 of a science teacher, and this past year, coming into this year, we lost a full-time science teacher. So in the past 2 years, we've lost 1.6 science teachers. This has impacted our program in several ways. One of which would be the science fair that we run for all of our students in chemistry and AP Science. This past year, we had over 100 students, which is the largest science fair we've ever had at Rogers High School. In order to have a successful science fair, there's an incredible amount of work that goes into this, and losing these two teachers, these two people over the last 2 years, was definitely felt this past year. There's an incredible amount of paperwork that goes into having students complete their own experiment, safety being at the first and foremost there because the state requires so much safety, but also for us to go through all of that paperwork to make sure what they're doing is safe, what they're doing is relevant, what they're doing is something that they can do within their own capacity. So that has been a huge problem for us. Moving forward, we want to continue having the science fair because it's grown every year. However, it's very challenging to do with too fewer people than usual. Also, another issue we've had with this decrease in the science staffing is our science classes have definitely had different problems, especially coming to like this year, losing that full-time science person. We've had students misplaced because there's not enough classes for them to take. Some examples of this are there are students who take their science class in the ALP setting, which is the Alternative Learning Program, because there's no science class for them to take at Rogers High School during whatever period that is. Some county students, when they come to Rogers, there weren't enough places to put them for biology, so they're placed in chemistry, which now means next year as juniors, they'll take biology, which as of next year, all freshmen will take biology as well, so we'll have a handful of juniors in class with freshmen in a biology setting, which doesn't seem appropriate for us. There's also 2 levels of each science. So for example, in chemistry, we have a college prep level and we have an honors level, which is our first year course. Because we don't have enough sections of these biology classes or chemistry classes, students who should be typically in the honors setting are in a college prep setting and vice versa. This has also happened with some students who have transferred back specifically from private schools. They have been put in the incorrect section this year of chemistry. We also have had overcrowding in science classes. As you probably are aware, there's 27 students in a biology lab section. An additional table and 3 chairs have had to be brought into a lab setting that's already pretty cramped in order to accommodate these students. There are 5 P-Tech science classes this year, and none of those students were accommodated. I teach 2 of those P-Tech science classes. I have students who are not in the P-Tech program, which is on a different learning platform, in those P-Tech classes, and then I also have students who are in P-Tech science who are in regular Rogers classes. AP Chemistry was dropped without any notice. Students were given their summer assignment, were passed in, were graded, and then not told that that AP Chemistry was not going to run. There's also only 1 semester of horticulture. Typically we have at least 3 to 4 semesters of horticulture in order to accommodate all of the many, many needs that horticulture program accommodates for the school and for the community. We also, cosmetology science was staffed last minute with a teacher. We weren't sure the first day of school who was going to be teaching cosmetology science. Our cosmetology students need that cosmetology science in order to help them pass their board certification. In closing, we would like more science teachers, and these are the ways that we have been affected throughout this. It's affecting our students, it's affecting our programs, and it's affecting things moving forward in this STEM environment that we're trying to create at the high school. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Did you hear?
Hi, my name is Brittany Coleman, and I'm a science teacher at Rogers High School, and I've been here since 2008. Here to address the fact that we have 27 students in a lab biology class, which is an unsafe number and has never been more than 24 in the past 30 years. In the mid-1980s, there was a memorandum of an agreement between the administrators and the teachers that there would be no more than 24 in a lab science due to safety issues, and every administrator since then has agreed to that term. And this is the first year that has not been agreed upon. The National Science Teachers Association has gathered peer-reviewed literature based on safety and created these guidelines, saying that there are 2 major problems with overcrowding: teachers' ability to supervise a large number of students doing activities in labs, and then the amount of actual workspace that the students have to do the lab activities. According to the NSTA, 65% of lab accidents occur when there are more than 24 students in a lab class, and that number drops to 20% when there's between 20 and 24 students in a lab class. Mr. Dickinson's room, he's the science teacher of record who has 27 students, also only allots 39 square feet per person, per student, square feet per student in his room, and the recommended amount is 60 square feet per student. So 70% of the accidents that occur when there is less than 45 square feet per space, and he has only 39 square feet per space. It's a very, very tight room for 27 students. The mission statement of Rogers High School states that all students are going to be educated in a safe environment, and this is definitely not a safe environment for the students or for the teachers that are in that area as well, in that school, in that class. The issues that we have as science teachers with this is not at all about money or anything like that. It is really just about our safety and the safety of all the students that are in these classes, and that is our #1 concern. we are the ones that train the students at the beginning of the year how to be safe in a class, and we are responsible for their safety. And when we recommend to administrators the safe number and are not listened to or are ignored about it, it becomes very difficult to become accountable for that safety of all the students if we know going into it it's not a safe situation. Mostly we're concerned that if the issue is not rectified now and it's just kind of ignored, that it will continue to further every year. Oh, we did it last year, we can do it again. And more classes will be packed with 27 students, which is 3 over the safe guideline for lab classes, and this will become the new precedent of being able to pack lab classes. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rose Katsaftis, and I'm a senior at Rogers High School, and I'm here on behalf of the event that occurred between my robotics coach, Scott Dickinson, and also on behalf of the science teachers. The day that my coach, Mr. Dickinson, had told us that he was resigning due to these issues, it was genuinely heartbreaking. I've been on this team since freshman year, and I've made friends on it. It's been embedded in my lifestyle, and it's even influenced my career choices with engineering. And the fact that it was going to come to an end, I hoped that he was joking, but he in fact was not. He initially tried to keep the students out of the issues and not to really bring us into what was happening with the school committee, but it was inevitable when an article had come out depicting the issues that occurred. And quite frankly, as a student, I'm appalled that the school committee would let this happen. Being a group of adults that are chosen specifically to better the school environment, the fact that student safety and education is not first and foremost in your consideration is awful. I've been in various AP and honors classes. I've been in honors biology, CP, honors AP Chem, and even on honors anatomy, AP physics. I've been in a lot of lab classes, and I can speak firsthand that it can get out of hand, even with a smaller number of students. Accidents happen because we are kids and teenagers and we're trying to learn. And when you have more students, especially students at a CP level, that aren't as responsible as AP students, it's going to happen, and it's just not a safe environment. Now, my robotics team is something that has been important to a lot of people. I know there's one of my colleagues in the audience here today, and a lot of them wanted to come because we were looking forward to going to nationals this year, and as a senior, it was going to be my first nationals I was going to attend. And honestly, I wouldn't want to go with anyone other than Mr. Dickinson. Being with him for 4 years, I don't think you can really find another coach that's going to have the same passion that he has and the same educational background to really let the team thrive. I know that you promised to get us another coach, but I really strongly believe that no one you're going to find is going to be sufficient for this team like he is. I implore you to not simply put a Band-Aid over the situation by finding us a new coach, but genuinely work at the root of the problem with the science teachers because it isn't a safe environment. I'm not here simply for robotics or for the science issues. I'm here for both because I think that it's what's best for the students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tall people here tonight. So my name is Barbara Warner, and my daughter Catherine received an art certificate this evening. She's a student at Rogers High School. She's in the 10th grade in the life skills program due to her diagnosis of autism. Her disability severely affects her ability to communicate, so I am here as her voice and as her advocate. As you may know, last week a 4th grade teacher in Salt Lake City, Utah, was placed on administrative leave after the teacher forced a student to remove his Ash Wednesday cross on his forehead. This incident is clearly being taken seriously, and an investigation into whether disciplinary action will be levied against the teacher has been opened. In the meantime, the teacher is not teaching. And according to the Associated Press, the teacher was called into a meeting with the principal and the school committee to discuss this incident. And the teacher was instructed to make an apology to the student. So I mention this because last month I received an email from Catherine's high school art teacher. And in this email, she referred to my child as lazy and apathetic. Catherine is neither of those. She has a pervasive disability. I was outraged to read that email, and the art teacher's level of insensitivity toward my child with a serious disability is shameful. I contacted school administration immediately. However, a month has passed, and I believe no action has been taken by the administration. We still have not received an apology from the art teacher. In fact, I requested a face-to-face meeting with administration and that art teacher, but the request was denied by administration because the teacher refused to meet with me. I believe that this is an example of a pattern that Rogers has of obscuring, derailing, and ignoring legitimate complaints. And my question to you, our school committee, is why is it that in Salt Lake City, that type of issue is taken seriously and addressed, but it seems to not be taken seriously here in Newport, Rhode Island? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
if
Leary.
there's no further public comment, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. Oh, there is, I'm sorry, I thought she was done. Sorry, Catherine. No comment, I'll make amend the agenda.
Hello, my name is Scott Dickinson. I'm the former robotics coach for Rogers High School. To clear the air of rumors I have read, I resigned the position on for my own reasons of overcrowding in classrooms leading to unsafe lab conditions. I have run the robotics program for 15 years at Rogers High School. The mission of the program is to build interest in the fields of science, engineering, and technology. Fields that have been identified as needed today and where there are not enough students to fill key roles in our nation. Some of my graduates attended these fine universities: Northeastern University, Providence College, University of Rhode Island, Brown University, CCRI, Mass Maritime Academy, the Naval Academy, Campbell University, and Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Some of these students are now working at Abbott Designs, building medical devices, CVS, IGT, Joyenta, a Samsung subsidiary, and flying reconnaissance for the U.S. Navy. So just to name a few, you can see that the mission is working. The students obtain some of their interest and motivation from participating in my after-school robotics program per our mission. In case you're wondering, I have run the robotics program for 14 of the 15 years without being paid by the Newport School Department. I did it because it was the right thing to do for our students. Robotics students have participated in external programs like MATE, Marine Advanced Technology Education at the Mass Maritime Academy, underwater robotics programs at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the Marine Technology for Teachers and Students program, or MATS, provided by the University of Rhode Island's Graduate School of Oceanography in collaboration with the University of Connecticut, Avery Point. The Northwest Passage Project with URI Graduate School of Oceanography and the Inner Space Center. the Sea Perch program in association with RoboNation and the Office of Naval Research. They have attended lectures and tours of the facilities at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. This is just a partial list of programs that, due to my connections in the industry, Rogers students have been able to participate in. An underlying part of all these programs is to introduce students to the possibility in higher education that might spark their interest and help them choose a career. It has been fairly successful and has helped Rogers High School shine in the press. Although, evidently, that can work both ways. Perhaps many of you are not aware that robotics program has done for our students over my tenure for the past 16 years. I'm rather amused that you have posted the robotics coach position to get a replacement for me. There are skills, connections, and know-how that only I can bring to this program. The New Bedford High School lost their robotics coach 6 years ago due to class size issues. New Bedford High School, that sponsors the regional event that I have won for the past 5 years, they do not even have a team after losing their coach. I assume you are aware that having built an award-winning team for the past 5 years, maybe you can conclude from my recent record that I play to win. I guess you'll have to ask yourself one question. Do you want to play on a winning team?
Thank you. Mrs. Nash, is there any other public comment? Excuse me? Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I
Mr.
can make
Leary.
a motion to amend the agenda, to bring action point 6.6, we're starting on the action items, now make 6.6 the first one.
Is there a second on Mr. Leary's motion?
I gotta get to
He just wants to move 6.6.
Yeah,
up.
the reason I want to move it is some of the people,
So there's a motion been made and seconded, motion made by Mr. Leary, seconded by Mrs. Neary. Is there any discussion? Seeing none?
Mr. Chair, if I could just motion why, some people are concerned
No,
not
that's fine.
voting for this.
Move
I
on.
know, some people, they have practice, they have band practice for the AOH, and I think that he's already been late enough, and I think we should get him up there as soon as we can.
Very good. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
All right, so the next order of business would be 6.6, which is a motion, it's an action item to request approval to execute the AT&T lease agreement between Newport School Department and AT&T. This is a lease that's before you for approval for AT&T for the, after putting out an RFP for the cell tower at Rogers. Is there a motion to approve the lease as presented?
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there discussion on it? I know there's some folks from the audience, I believe, that would like to speak, so if you'd like to hear that, or you can ask your questions. So, Mrs. Nash, who do you have signed up first?
James Nolan.
Hello, good evening. My name's James Nolan. I could sit up here for a couple hours and reiterate the 20 or plus so emails that have been sent to everyone. So I'm just going to try to quickly summarize my thoughts on where we stand tonight. Here we are once again. The neighbors' views have not changed or altered, and we still have this non-conforming structure looming above us, posing significant potential risks to our health, property values, environment, and quality of life. A structure that morphed from an educational learning tool, a wind turbine project, that was legally pursued and abandoned into a big business. AT&T saw an opportunity and jumped on it. For the school, it was a no-brainer, free money. The problem, it was never legal. The cell companies jumped onto a tower that was used to house a wind turbine. Then it grew so large, they replaced the tower with a new giant one capable of holding more providers and equipment. The problem with this is the original variance given to the school for an educational experiment was no longer valid. If it had been done legally, there would have been restrictions in place to ensure the safety and quality of life of the school children and the neighbors who were never notified or consulted with. Fast forward several years of meetings, investigations, inputs, the school committee voted to terminate the leases. The companies were all legally notified. Then out of the blue, the city of Newport stepped in, suggested that there might be a safety risk removing the towers, buying the companies more time to find suitable and legal sites. This obviously has worked, since only 1 out of the 3 original carriers offered to return on a new lease. In our findings from countless hours of meetings and research, we know that Sprint cell tower across the street, yes, only 600 feet away, has room for 1 additional carrier. I ask you, the school committee, to uphold your vote, terminate the leases, and remove their equipment. I might further suggest that AT&T, or New Singular as they're called now, relocate to the tower across the street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Turcott?
Good evening, I'm Stephen Turcott. I live at 125 Old Fort Road. As my neighbor, Mr. Nolan suggests, is that we've been actually discussing this first off, for about 2 hours, two years before it came to vote. I brought up a Newport Daily News, basically saying that the cell tower, the leases were going to be terminated. And in reading the second paragraph, it says the school committee members pledged Tuesday night not to support a renewal of the leases for 2017 for the 3 communication companies that now currently are on that tower. This is dated August 12th, 2015. We've kind of been bounced around for quite a bit. What I ask is that there's no way we can reiterate everything. I provided, I think, enough materials. I really tried to support that, our arguments, our discoveries, and I hope that truly the members, I know that Mr. Leary, Mrs. Flowers, Mrs. Boland, were supportive. I hope that the new members of the council understand the flight of what we had gone through and will honor the vote of the previous council. Thank you.
Thank you.
On this topic?
No other public comment? Any questions from anybody on the school committee discussion? Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, just one development that I became aware of, that a number of years ago when we were going through these many countless meetings about this, I think there was a suggestion about putting a tower or moving one to Fort Adams, and somewhere along the line it was, no, that really wasn't feasible, and then I believe there is one there now. Yeah. Yeah, so again, I'm certainly not an engineer or an expert in any of these types of things. I just know when I can get a signal. But that seems that some things happen that we've not been made aware of except recently. It's a difficult decision to make because of the financial aspects of our budget, the city's finances, and so forth. I understand there are other, you made reference to the fire department with the extra power, I guess, that's going up on that antenna. I would hope that people don't lose their signals. I think I said that a few years ago when I was chastised, wondering why I said it. And I said, I'm just wondering. I just hope people don't lose their signals. But however, there seem to be other facilities there. I always feel like erring on the side of caution. I've read some of the research, I've read some of the documents that you sent and other things that I've read too, speaking to people. I've not had any conversation with my colleagues here at all about this. I mentally labored over this for the past month or so, knowing that this was coming. And as I feel right now, I'm going to stick to my guns and again say, let's not continue with the tower. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leary?
I've been a lot of research on this in paper articles. Sean Flynn did a nice article on this, and the headlines have been from Paul Lees, who's a big real estate person in town. It says, "It's ugly as sin. This was no attempt to make it look attractive." So the neighbors are against it, and I could sit here and talk at length about this, but that's not my style. I just feel sorry. We're the neighbors, and this is in their backyard. And it's always that saying, not my backyard, but this is in their backyard, and they look at it, and it's ugly as sin, and I'm sorry for that, and I will not support this.
Mrs. Boatright.
My understanding with this, and I would like clarification maybe, but is that, I mean, I am new to this whole thing, I have to say, but what I would have been told about this is that at maybe a year ago or a little bit more, that the city had come back to the school department and the school committee basically saying that we need to have this, as you said, for security purposes for 911 and so on. And so it's my understanding that the chair had gone out and met with a lot of neighbors to try to make sure that he took in as much of the neighbors' input to change an RFP to accommodate, to reduce the size, to make many changes to, again, accommodate neighbors' preferences. And I believe at this point in time it is to really just approve the contract at this point in time. I think that have we already basically agreed to the concept of having them stay? Pardon me?
One stay.
Just have one stay, but if they had fulfilled the requirements of our RFP, I think that we've pretty much been obligated to go forward with a contract. Am I correct on that or not?
So yes, came about, the city did come to us several years ago. The city asked that we hold on, the leases had been terminated. The city asked that we hold on enforcing the tenants to leave. The city, along with the cell tower companies, did testing throughout the city to see if they could locate the tower. It came back to that the tower was in the best location it could be for that end of town by their recommendations. Based on that, the RFP was developed to mitigate a lot of the discussion back to the time when the cell tower was there and existing. Several years ago, Verizon caused a big ruckus by adding the building, doing a lot of work to the tower. That's where the dispute started, back to having the leases terminated. So the RFP was written in a sense to pull in as much feedback from the neighbors with their concerns to address those, the aesthetics, making the tower more appealing and having the building removed. Those types of things are in the RFP. And AT&T was the only company who responded to the RFP to meet the criteria that was put in the RFP. So they responded affirmatively, met the standard of the RFP, and subsequently this committee accepted that and put out for a lease, and that lease is before you tonight from AT&T.
So with that, typically in a business environment, you're pretty much obligated to go forward with it if they've been able to meet all of the obligations of the RFP that we put forth. Is that right?
Defer to Mr. Galvin to...
Ultimately, this is your decision. I mean, you have to decide to proceed. In terms of the language in the lease, after the school committee put out the RFP and the RFP was responded to, we provided a lease to AT&T, the only successful bidder on the RFP. They came back with comments, suggested changes. Most of those changes were fine. We modified anything that was not acceptable. So the language in the document from a legal standpoint is satisfactory. Your final decision is whether to proceed with it or not. And that's before you tonight, as to make that decision.
Okay.
There is a representative from AT&T here if you have any questions of him, but ultimately it's your vote tonight.
Okay. Well, so then it just really comes down to our judgment on making it smaller as it had been years ago, pretty much, and keeping some of that revenue. So, okay.
Mr. Bowen, did you?
No, I just noticed that, can he readdress or not?
Just as a community.
Just, you, more than welcome, just step up to the microphone.
Any of those changes that were put before us within that 2-year time were completely denied. We did not agree to any of them. They weren't satisfactory. All through that point, the growth of the pole across the street at the fire department, Station 2, was just growing as, I think it's a 5G possibly now. So it's a matter of a lot of reasons that we completely denied any type of change, any discretionary movement of equipment off the tower. So there was no community involvement to work on whatever you were talking about, the RF, from our point of view. We completely think that the structure needs to be disassembled and taken away.
I read something on the internet that was sent out, I think it was an email, but stating that you're not happy with the fire department's new tower either. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct, actually. I've sent some pictures in with regard to the development of it, but we've not challenged. That's not a challenge for us. It's the tower we're within, 150 yards of each. We're between two ultimate towers. We're bearing a burden that no other community is burning.
Well, there's towers all over the United States of America. I'm thinking
I
that
realize
there's...
that, but we're in a neighborhood which is a neighborhood,
No, I understand.
and it's a Newport, New England scape that again, a lot of people come here from all over the world to view the point or view Ocean Drive, things of that nature. So there's a character issue that I think is very, very relevant.
I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Certainly.
Oh, can I ask a question? Actually, either one of you. Actually, one is coming to you because I'm asking actually a question related to your point about, you said property values. Have they gone down in your neighborhood? Okay, just, I'm just asking the question.
Just,
I would say too is if a young couple were in the house and they looked at the tower, they had another decision that might was just as applicable, I would think they would again. It would be a decision not to purchase the house for health reasons.
That's an individual, right, and that's an individual's decision? That's an individual's decision. That's not necessarily.
so,
Right.
It's very hard to.
I'm not cutting anybody off. I just need you to go to the podium so other people can hear. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm
go
not
ahead.
cutting any.
No,
No,
go
I'm
ahead,
not
because
cutting
I have
anybody
questions.
off. It's
No,
just
I have
so you
questions.
can.
I have questions, so please go.
Jim's really good at a lot of stuff too.
You can both go up. Feel free to both go up. My understanding, and I read your materials, but my ultimate understanding is the only redress you want is that there be no tower.
Correct,
Right.
because we have
So
a tower we have a tower already that we have not tried to change in any way.
Correct. And you and I had a long conversation on the phone. And I said at the time, and I meant it, do you have a way, and I don't want people to misunderstand me. I don't mean it dismissively, I don't mean it insultingly, but do you have a way, this question I ask you, do you have a way for us as a school committee in charge of education for 2,000 students, currently in a budget deficit, do you have a way to find that revenue for us in another way? Because you do,
Well,
in terms of...
I guess it's, in a way, I do pay my taxes, that's one. Two is I do vote in people who I hope that will actually manage what they have and able to better a situation. I am a graduate of Rogers High School. I'm very proud to be. Matter of fact, Colleen's uncle, I had Kevin here, and he was probably my best teacher ever for current affairs. So the first thing I want to do is make sure Rogers succeeds and the school department succeeds. But no, I have not spent nights thinking about that because, again, I hope that people who sign on to do those things will take
Right.
care of that.
And exactly, and that's what I've spent nights doing.
Correct,
And
thank
at
you.
the moment, I cannot find, and those conversations we are having all day, every day, I cannot find a way to find that money somewhere else. You just heard 2 teachers saying they're 1.6 teachers down, right? Because we had to cut teachers, we had to cut education.
Right.
Because we're in a deficit.
I think the idea is you just cannot go out and grab money wherever it's available. You know, it's like, you know, you want to sell cigarettes at the cafeteria. I mean, that's a way to make some great money. I wouldn't recommend it, though it was a smoking lounge when I was there, by the way.
Right, those
All
were
right.
removed and something else was put in for revenue. So again, I don't mean it dismissively, but I want you to understand, I think, I have felt that people think we're making these decisions willy-nilly. We just don't want to listen to you, your word. That is, at least, I will speak for myself, that is not how I've approached this.
Okay, I think though, if maybe you were available for the 2 years of our discovery and discussion, I think you might have a different opinion, because it was,
I've been a
there was
resident.
no
I've seen this
knee-jerk
happen.
reaction to any of this. It was really a lot of openness, discussion, a lot of AT&T, Verizon, sending, you know, their lobbyists to us, and you know, we provided all the facts. And I can also tell one more thing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Something that the board here cannot really say, but in my discovery, I believe that is detrimental to the health. And to have a tower that close to the school for young children, having the teachers work there all the time, having another tower not too far away, I believe that there is adverse health effects.
We can debate that science for a long time, but I take your
correct.
point.
It's almost like the cigarettes. I mean, all you want to have to do is go to the cigarette people and ask how the benefits of cigarettes.
Right.
You know, all you have to have is AT&T up here telling us basically the benefits of the cell tower.
That is not where I take my, that's not where I take my science information. I don't take it from the manufacturers of stuff.
Excellent.
I mean, because
That's great.
I mean, they have a profit motive. I
Correct.
get
You would have
that.
enjoyed our discovery time for 2 years then, I think.
But I mean, I've lived here long enough that I've at least read all of these things in the paper as they were going on, and I just wanted to say, and as I've said, it isn't an easy decision to make.
I realize that.
For me, because certainly I wasn't here in the 2 years in the weeds of it. But I said this to you, and I told you I would say things honestly.
You did.
And then
Thank
here,
you.
and
I appreciate
I
that.
cannot honestly, when I look at 2,000 students and a school district in a deficit, I am sorry to say, I cannot find that money anywhere else. And it's all right. I appreciate that people feel like that's an easy way out.
It is.
But I am $500,000 in the hole, and it's not a lot, but it's better than zero. And if you could find me the money, because you do in terms of just having service, there is a tower not too far away. Because and that's obviously more a city concern, whether or not the residents have cell service. There is cell service, but for me, that's a city concern.
You know, do you have, right now, working on that tower, how many providers are on the tower right now, Rogers, working?
Three.
Three currently. And the lease has been up for some time. Have you collected any money on those leases?
Yes.
Just
And it
recently?
is- Oh, yes.
Just recently then?
Yep.
Okay,
No,
so
they've
they're all
all
paid
been
up
paid.
just recently?
No, not
Not
recently,
recently.
straight through.
Yeah,
They've been paying the entire time. They've been-
Well, nonetheless, I don't think, again, I went to the voting booth to make sure that that this system was managed properly without any excess burden on a neighborhood. And I feel that's what it is. And again, there is a safety value as well as the landscape of a New England landscape, because that is exactly how we attract and get the big money that we can pay the taxes for the school.
Not so far.
I'll just make the one other, when you said that maybe you hadn't been asked the questions about what to put into the RFP, but there was a significant effort made by the school committee to reduce the size, to remove the structure that's right near it, and to try to make it look a much better system. I understand your issues, but it is true what Mrs. Neary just said, and the finances in the school system are not good.
I would say that
And so-
the reason why there's less is only because they've gone to other places. And again, it does trouble me a little bit. The two newest members here are, we went for 2 years of a lot of discovery. I mean, there's a lot of time, a lot of my time, a lot of everyone's time. There was a lot of members who are not here from our neighborhood, primarily because they're kind of sick and tired of it. And I can tell you, after reading those articles of I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said, when is it going to be down? When is it going to be down? Because, well, that wasn't at the vote.
It wasn't.
So it is, and the word I've heard is disgusting, or deplorable, personally, that this can't be honored the way it was voted on after, again, a long process of discovery. So I don't want to reiterate anything anymore. I mean, I've done it for a long period of time. As you can tell, I only gave you a quarter of what information I have, for goodness sakes. I could give you volumes, but it doesn't make me an expert. And yes, Ms. Boatwright, did you have a question? Ms. Bolin?
Well, it's more, maybe it's a question to fellow people on the school committee, but to me, it's kind of sad that we're having to make a decision solely on the basis of bringing in 60, whatever that amount is. It's not, because it's not going to be the 3 towers anymore, it'll be 1. And, if it wasn't a money issue, would you still vote the same way? That's the question, because, I think that we need to really look at that, because I've not changed my mind in the 2 years since this all came up, and I was not even going to say anything, but I think everybody needs to think about that, because I don't know that they would make the same decision if we weren't in the financial crisis.
Yeah, shame on everybody up here for this, shame on them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Leary, Mr. Boland. Any other discussion?
I guess Jim wants to talk about it.
You say that money in a minute. Spending problems on revenue problems.
I'd just like to say, the school committee might be thinking a little short-sighted, possibly maybe because you're a little bit out of your job description. First question I'd have is, when is that gear coming down that's not supposed to be there? And you may have providers that aren't willing to remove it, and you're going to have lawyer fees and issues that are going to cost you money in order to make that happen. And I happen to be in the business of real estate. My family's been in it for a long time, and being a landlord is not an easy thing, nor is it one I think is the description of the school committees. And I respect you guys. I understand it's an easy money grab for you, but it can be a much bigger headache. And this is without any legal action or liabilities being taken against you as the actor of the city, warranting that the structure is even legal, and it's never been zoned properly, neighbors were never issued officially properly, so no one wants to go down that path, but if it needs to, your financial numbers they'll be gone in no time to the courts. So just to give you that thought process.
It's in the thought process.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions by school committee members? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. 4-3, the motion passes. Next item on the agenda is action item 6.1. The next 4 action items on the agenda, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4, are all from our meetings with the legislators, again, largely on revenue issues that we had asked the legislators to review, and how could we help. And at the meeting, they said that we would put resolutions in along with our city council. Many of these, 2 of the 4 here are direct city ordinance, city resolutions that they've passed on to the legislators. So that we'll go through them. The first one is 6.1. It's a request for approval of a resolution on state education funding formula submitted by several other school districts. Do we have a motion to approve the item as presented?
So moved.
Made by Dr. Flowers. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Boatwright, any discussion on the?
We just doing 6.1 right now? or-
Yeah.
Yeah, no discussion.
Any discussion on 6.1? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion 6-1. Next item is 6.2. It's a request for approval of a resolution on binding arbitration. Again, it's a similar resolution to many throughout the state that other school districts are putting in. Is there a motion to approve this resolution as written?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Neary, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Any discussion on this?
No.
I will say on this resolution that I personally will not be voting for it. I feel that binding arbitration is a benefit that I think if our teachers had would be very useful to settle in the contracts. I know many of my colleagues throughout the state disagree with me, but that'll be my reason for voting against this resolution this evening.
We do have someone that wanted to.
Oh, perfect. Sorry.
Hello, good evening. My name is Bill Kimes. I am a special ed teacher at Rogers High School since year 2001. Mr. Gomes, today I met with your admin team here at Pell. My role as a member of the NPS curriculum team, we met in discussion, trying to tease out some differences of opinion. And I was real struck by the tone of the conversation, and especially by the end how we all had really agreed that no matter where we sit in rooms like this, that kids come first. And, you know, driving home from that meeting today, and Josephine, we do take last minute notes sometimes, trying to figure out why this 6.2 was sticking in my head. I could not figure out why, and it was just sitting there. So I got home, and it was really what I kind of figured out is there's this dichotomy. You have this a vote today in favor of this resolution is a vote against fairness, against equity, against balance. These are all tenets of a public ed system. When you vote for this resolution today, you're voting against these things. And this doesn't sit well for me. So again, I'm reading the resolution, paragraph 6, 7, 9. I'll talk about how the resolution will force an arbitrator to break Rhode Island general law. No arbitrator is going to make a ruling that goes against the law. These justifications are not valid justifications. Paragraph 5 begins to talk about tax burden, and you start to see that, okay, but in 2016, we were the 34th out of 37 communities. We're plenty of communities that are well worse off than ours as far as the tax burden. So, It's paragraph 8. Let me summarize paragraph 8 for you. Ability to control. Mr. Gomes, it's my very strong opinion that the support of this resolution today is a step away from building out our NPS teamwork mentality. And that camaraderie I felt today, we're stepping away from that when you're supporting this resolution. I don't know what we're headed toward, but I guess it kind of feels like something that's going to be kind of put onto this community that doesn't belong there, and I'm strongly against this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Gomes.
Thank you for your comments. Any discussion? Dr. Flowers.
Yeah, this is another one of these, when you look at the way these are written, I think it was even asked this question back in the campaign season about the mandatory arbitration on all areas, including funding. And my comment was, I don't think it really favors the teachers either, because you can be stuck in something that you really don't want. That's just how I look at it. I tend to look at issues from several different angles, maybe a little unorthodox, but so be it. I just feel it can really tie the hands of both sides. The binding arbitration.
Thank you, Dr. Flowers. Any other discussion?
I'll say that
Mrs. Neary.
ironically, the reason I think exactly to say that's how I read it, that it binds, it's not actually good for either schools or teachers, because there is a third party who is not a member of the community as they are now. They're not members of the community who can come in and make a decision and bind you one way or the other, whether it's binding the school district or it's binding the teachers and the union. And that's essentially why, so that's why I want to reject any legislation that does that. But, because that's how I read it. Because it binds everybody. Binding arbitration binds everyone. It binds, yeah, please. I mean, maybe I misunderstood it, but binding arbitration binds everyone. It binds you, it binds us.
Hi, I'm Jack Seichert. I own property in Newport. 16 Catherine Street. How's that? It's a nice place. This argument's been going on forever and ever. You have binding arbitration on everything except for monetary matters. Because when you have a grievance, it goes to arbitration, and both sides have, as Mr. Galvin can attest, over the years, both sides have agreed to what the arbitrator came up with. I don't think we've ever gone to court except for once for a department share way back in the ancient times. I would say that the police and fire both have binding arbitration, as you know. Mr. Gomes knows that. I don't think he's ever refused an arbitrator's award either way, and that's why he has the honesty of not voting for this resolution. Now, people on this board who've been teachers before, both organizations have always been in favor of binding arbitration rather than getting into the kind of bad feelings that have occurred over the years. If you can't support binding arbitration, then at least support continuation, because you already know what you have then, and you can stop the bad feeling over the length of the contract. So I know you're not going to vote for binding arbitration because that's not what school committees do, even though every municipality, every single fire department, every single police department has binding arbitration to prevent work stoppages and the like, and the bad feeling and the like. So consider it, at least consider continuation as a resolution that you should push forward. Is Tim Ryan still head of the superintendents? That guy, we followed him for binding arbitration for years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, sure. Just step right up there, young man. I think you are still a young man, right?
Closing in on 55 this year.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm David Kusachani. I'm a science teacher at Thompson Middle School, a job that I love. I teach 6th grade. I also teach chess there, and that's a lot of fun with the Newport Community School that spoke tonight, so I truly hope they continue to get funded through any means necessary. Quickly on binding arbitration, just to dovetail what Mr. Seichert said, some of you know that I was a correctional officer. They recently got binding arbitration a few years ago. It's worked very well for both sides, both the state of Rhode Island and the correctional officers. They've been able to resolve matters. The police have it, as Mr. Gomes has spoken for it. The firefighters has it, and he's one of the ones in the room who has a great deal of experience as a union leader with binding arbitration. He's now sitting as a school committee member, and he's consistent on what he's telling you. The other thing is, I want to talk to some of you that are there. I have questionnaires. I'm head of the Political Action Committee for the Teachers Association in Newport. And I have questionnaires from some of you sitting there. And I hope you remember what you checked on the questionnaire when you vote tonight. That's all I'm going to say in closing.
Thank you for your comments. Dr. Flores.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, that was the questionnaire I was
What's the
referring to.
ramification? That sounds...
All right, All right, Dr. Flowers has a,
Yeah.
Dr. Flowers.
Yeah, I don't usually go on a second time here, but in reference, and we don't want to get off into a tangent here. But yes, the police and fire departments throughout the state, I believe, do have, I guess they probably all have binding arbitration. And we all know in many communities, years and years and years go by before some contracts are settled. In our capital city and some other places, and you say, my gosh, they've been working without a contract, and it mentions like a few years before. Continuation, obviously. They have to get paid. But it's not an easy solution on either side, but that's just something to remember, that our other community helpers quite often have to wait a long while for the contracts to be settled. Just keep that in mind.
Just Mrs. Boland, I'm sorry.
Can we do a hand vote on this one?
No, actually, so I'm going to put a motion in to pull it, and I will say, because apparently you guys don't like it, I come from a country that has unions, a whole lot of unions, and the way they were broken up was this way. In France, this is union busting, which is why I read it, and I'm like, no, these are not good. Binding arbitrations hold things forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. That's, in my country, that's how it's been done, so that's how I read it.
And we didn't even talk about this.
And we did not talk about it. So that's how I read it, because you could see, if you look at, you can go anywhere on any French website right now and look at the number of unions there were in 1970 when I was born and the number of unions there are now. They're much, much, much fewer, same as here, obviously. And one of the ways they're being shrunk is this way. But it apparently doesn't work the same way in this country. That's fine. I put a motion to pull resolution 6.2.
I have a statement about that. It might make a stronger statement. I plan to vote the same way Ray does. Makes a stronger statement if we don't vote in favor of it. So, like maybe we shouldn't pull it just so that we
Well, Mrs. Neary has asked, she was the sponsor, Mrs. Neary has asked for it to be pulled, and we'll pull it from the agenda for this evening. We'll move on to 6.3.
Yeah, we got some formalities with that, am I correct?
Oh, yeah. She's pulling the-
On this motion?
Yes.
Is
The
it a
motion was first and second, so we got formalities to clear up.
I believe this might be a motion to table,
Yeah.
and then it needs to be seconded and then voted on.
Okay, so the motion would be to table it. There was a motion made to approve. Motion is necessary to table 6.2. Are you going to, is that your motion, Mr. Leary?
No, I just want to make sure we did the formalities properly.
So I have a motion to table.
And I'll
Is there a
second it.
Table
I'll second it.
6.2.
Mrs. Boatright, a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the tabling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Mr. Leary. 6.3 is a request for approval of resolution and meal and beverage tax. This is put forth in coordination with the city council, who is asking the same thing, and this is a resolution to support their request of the state legislature and our legislators to help the city with the several suggestions that the city is putting in for. So is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Dr. Flowers, seconded by Mrs. Boland. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey,
Mr. Leary. 6.4 is a resolution on the hotel tax. Again, this is a similar sister or companion resolution to the city council that they've adopted, asking the legislature to approve Newport to raise the hotel tax, and in turn, that money would be earmarked for education within Newport, and that's the city's request of the legislature, and this is a resolution supporting them in that request. Is there a motion to approve? Dr. Flowers, seconded by Mrs. Boatright. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leary.
I reserve my comments for 6.3 and 6.4 together. Being in the service industry, as I spoke earlier, this is not good. You can't continue. You can't go after the goose that lays the golden egg. You can't keep on going after trying to get more money to increase the tax rate, increase the food rate. It's just not right, and I can't support that.
So, yes, Mr. Leary. Dr. Flowers.
We look alike. If you look at that's 1% more, that is just 1 cent on a dollar, and if you spend $100 for a real classy lunch, or you have a really great room to stay in, that's just an extra dollar per 100. So, I'm not the great world traveler, but a few places I've gone, you can see why people like to come here, because the additional taxes are modest, to say the least. And the fact that this is written, if we can carve it in stone, that it will go to the public school facilities or for education, that is something that we've really had to do. I'm just glad to see that the council is backing this, and that our representatives, with whom we spoke a week or so ago, said, take this route. To me, this is the step forward that we really have to really follow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Sylvia?
I believe when we had our workshop with our legislators, they said that these bills will go nowhere unless they're for the entire state. If it's just for Newport, the legislature will not adopt them. So I'm wondering if we should consider amending this to have the 1% increase statewide, but the appropriate share be returned to the local community.
So my request in drafting this was that we mimic the language that was in the resolution that the city council sponsored, and this is the language that the city council sponsored.
Right, but we were outright told it will go nowhere.
If you'd like to amend it, I'm just explaining to you where it came from, is we're mirroring the language that the city council approved at their meeting last week. If you'd like to amend it, please feel free to. I'm just telling you how we drew up the language.
Okay, I'd have to come back at the next meeting to look at it, but I don't think that'd be, no, they're still in session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I make
Just a minute, Louise.
No? Should I amend it here?
As the chair just mentioned, this was to be a companion with the city council to show a strong united front from the school committee and the city council regarding this.
Okay. But it won't go anywhere. Okay.
Mrs. Boatright.
I'm going to be voting for this because I think that we have such a large concentration of hotels and beverages and tourism in our town, and we desperately need the support of new funding mechanisms for the school department. So I am going to be voting for this. And if it's, I do remember what they said, but I would have thought that they would have done the same thing because many of them were there at the meeting. So I'm hoping that this is similar to what is the resolution at the State House. If not, we should bring another one forward. But I would like to support the city council with their endeavors as well.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, I will support it. I just
If
hoping
you
for
would-
better chances, but
If you feel better,
That's
amend
up to
it,
the
and I will
council.
support you amending it. I
think
just
I-
wanted to tell you where the language came from.
I'll speak to the council to see what they did. I'll support this one and
Okay.
see if they want to amend it to go statewide.
Any other discussion? Question? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Leary. The next motion, 6.5, is a request for approval to add a pre-K bus. Due to a student that has come into the district, it has become necessary to add a pre-K bus for transportation of the student. And is there a motion to approve the approval of the pre-K bus as presented?
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Neary, seconded. Just second it so we can have discussion. on it.
Second.
Thank you. We have this
That's
motion
what I
been
was
made and
looking for,
seconded.
information.
Discussion.
Do you have a question?
Is there a
Yes,
question?
just-
For the additional bus.
Mrs. Sylvia had a question. I'm letting her speak.
I believe the memo is self-explanatory. We had a student with special needs move into the district.
I apologize.
Okay,
You're right.
all right. I didn't want want to go too deep.
Sorry.
All right, that's okay.
Just a minute, Dr. Flowers. had
Are any
questions.
other students on that bus?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so in other words, that will be, a number of youngsters will be riding with that particular.
And let me be very clear, we had to get the bus because of the student that moved into the district. We do have other students on the
But
bus.
it has to be the wheelchair accessible. Okay.
Thank you.
Just wondering, yes.
Mrs. Boland.
So this is really hard for me to approve because it's going to, go to moving the deficit even further. So, well, I'm sure you must have explored that there was no other way to do this. Do we not, could the bus company have provided a bus that had access, like a larger bus?
We tried every alternative, and we tried to look into any other way we could do
A
this.
van?
We tried everything, yes. And I don't think a van would accommodate that situation.
Mr. Leary, do you?
Yeah, I have real concerns with this also, Mrs. Boland. I see them all the time, there's vans, there's cabs. For one student, if we just do as one student, why can't we do this with a cab for the rest of the year?
As a matter of fact, I believe the director did look into a cab. I'm just sharing with you that any ride-approved method of transportation was explored, and this, because of the needs of the child, this was the only option. We tried every which way we could.
So was this not because of the contract with Durham Bus Company?
No.
So if we went to
this-
some other bus company and said, you got a van for us, we could do that?
No, it's whatever they.
You're,
So,
I mean, it's $24,000, $23,000.
right, we have a contract with this specific bus company.
Doesn't matter
Right,
who you are.
so we couldn't get Cozy Cab has a handicapped van.
My child's wheelchair.
No, not at this time.
Child's-
Right, has to approve whatever this child is in.
Yeah, and it must be.
just one at a time, please. Mrs. Boland.
I will say, though, that I read the contract recently for a teacher who was looking for a bus for a special trip, and there's nothing in there that says that we have to use them exclusively. So I wonder, was that thought of too? I mean, we can contract out for something else if we need to. There was no exclusivity clause in that contract that I could find.
My understanding is that is not true, and I believe Dr. Colley did look into that. And we're very clearly aware we have a budget challenge in front of us. So we were exploring with Director Andrade's assistance as well, all other options. She made multiple phone calls all over to try to find multiple options to this. We also, I don't want to say.
Did the director like to
Would you
address
like
the
to
school
just say
committee?
something?
Okay.
Sure, okay.
Any other discussion, questions?
Is there money in the special ed budget?
No, there is not extra money in the special ed budget for this.
Then they have to have the monitor.
Any other discussion or questions?
I would just like to.
Just a minute, Mrs. Neary. No, go ahead, you.
I would just like to say that this is a perfect example of what we deal with day in and day out, where there's an educational decision that has a repercussion on the budget, and that decision is also directed to us from RIDE. There are things we have to do, and almost every single item on our docket every month has a repercussion, a monetary repercussion. And those are the things we have to think about, and they're never easy, because that's going to put us in a bigger hole. But what do we not bust this child? We cannot not bust the child. So I just want people to understand that's what we think about all the time, and it doesn't always come out the way the public wants, but this is what we do. And yeah, this is going to put us in the hole.
Ms. Boatright.
I'm going to reiterate that same thing, is that this is mandated that we take care of these things through RIDE. And so being a new member of the school committee, there are many, many of these things that come up, and you can't say no. Contracts and regulations drive 99% of the cost.
And I just want to also reiterate its idea, it's a federal regulation as well.
Right.
Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion's 5-2. Next item on the agenda is 6.7. It's a request for approval of draft plan for relocation of administrative offices in pre-K. This is a plan that was presented by Studio J to the building subcommittee to address the need of the administrative offices in pre-K. This draft plan is a plan to look at the vacant Maha School on Hillside Avenue and do some renovation to it in order to accommodate pre-K and the administrative offices next year and the pre-K upon the termination of their lease in June of 2020. Is there a motion for approval of the draft plan before you?
So moved.
Dr. Flowers, seconded by Ms. Boatright. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Boatright had her hand up first.
Absolutely.
Right to you in a minute, Mr. Lee.
This is a first draft. I just wanted to make sure that people know that the JADE people are working with the school department as we speak to make sure that they identify any particular costs. We're going to try to do this temporary, so as low cost as possible, but they just need to have a very in-depth with our engineers to know so this is not final. I just want that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leary.
I will not be supporting this. I think that building's a dump. I wouldn't put anybody in it. I'm not even administration, anybody, in the file, even for 1 year or 2 years. It's ridiculous.
Thank you. Mrs. Boland.
I just wondering, will this expense, will it be in next year's budget, or are we going to be paying it out of this year? If the city doesn't give us money?
There is no expense associated with this. This is simply a draft to allow them to move forward to develop costs for us to see what it would cost. But they needed this approval in order to move forward. So there is no cost currently included in this to the city. It's an exploratory. Okay, any other discussion? Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion 6-1. Next item is 6.8. It's a request for approval of the 2019-2020 school calendar. You have a school calendar that's in your packet presented to you this evening. Is there a motion for approval of the school calendar as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Sylvia, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Any discussion? Mrs. Boland.
Yeah, I just wonder the thinking on, we're going back after Christmas, as we have a great Christmas vacation, but how many people are going to really show up on that Thursday? So there's 1 day left after, you come back on Wednesday's New Year's.
2 days.
We have Thursday is it Thursday and Friday?
Right, we have 2 days. And this aligns to all the other schools on the island.
It does align to it, okay.
I know, we considered it, believe me.
Mr. Leary.
Mr. Chairman, I will not be supporting this. I know everybody thinks I'm the one vote all the time, but this bothers the hell out of me. We're the host city for Winter Festival in Newport. We're the host city, okay? And we take days out of school, go to school because of it. If you look on Monday, just on the website, on Wednesday of this year, there was story time at the Breakers Mansion at 9:30. At 10 o'clock, there was horse riding. At 12 o'clock, there was horse riding. At 12 o'clock, there was making soap. I'm just doing a few examples. On Thursday, there was rock and shell painting done for kids coming into school. At 12 to 5, it was making perfume. And on Friday, there was a salute to George Washington at the Redwood Library with the artillery company coming in at 11:30 in the morning. And then an ice cream social afterwards at the Hotel Viking. We are the host city. We just trying to increase the hotel tax. We're trying to increase food and beverage tax. All we're doing is saying to these people, the hell with you. I think it's horrible that we do this for 3 days. It's absolutely horrible.
Any other discussion or questions? Mrs. Boland.
Does it align with Portsmouth and Middletown?
Those 3 days do not. It aligns with Tiverton.
So it doesn't, so they get the whole week off?
Correct.
Ms. Boatright.
So,
I'm going to just say that the end of school is also just as important because we are a summer community, Mr. Leary, and it's very important that our students get out in line with the times that summer programs begin. So I will be voting for this.
Dr. Flowers.
I'm looking at the half-days. There's a lot of early release days. I understand it's for teachers' professional development. I'm just observing, that's all, and I've noticed it even now. You have the half-days for conferences, the half-days for professional development. And I would imagine at the different school levels, of course, they work out their schedule of classes. A little simpler in the elementary grades, but it's just a concern that I have about the kids being out as much as they are. And of course, we always have to deal with the weather situation too. I assume this has been vetted by the unions?
We shared the calendar, yes.
Because I just don't want to all of a sudden have us hit with a difficulty in implementing anything on the calendar.
No, we're all set.
It's all set?
Right.
Any-
It says
any-
pending.
It does say pending
Any
negotiations
other-
at the bottom.
It says
It says
pending.
pending
We used all the right words.
Any other comments, discussion, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 6-1.
5-2.
Oh, I'm
6
sorry,
to 2.
5-2. I'm sorry, I missed the other nay. I apologize. Next item up is discussion. Under discussion, item 7.1 is an update from TMS Principal and Assistant Superintendent on the TMS schedule, assessment, preparation, and remediation steps. I apologize, I'm tongue-tied at the moment. 7.1. I'll leave it to them. If he's seen the presentation, has a question or something to say on the presentation, or he can wait. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Good evening again. You have to stop meeting like this. Just as a reminder, the TMS schedule redesign started in the spring of 2018. And in November of this past year, Mr. Gomes asked that we assemble a committee to take a look at the schedule, take a look at concerns, and make some recommendations moving forward. The last time I reported to this committee, it was in January, and we had had one meeting in December. Since that time, we have met 2 additional times. We met in January and then again last week. We got caught up with the snow days and the gas problems and things like that, so we had to move those meetings around a little bit. And Dr. Bean, in just a second, will share with you the results of the latest meeting, because I think some of the things that were teased out in that meeting are exactly the types of things that Mr. Gomes was looking for in moving forward. The other thing that has occurred since when we spoke in January is that the DM group has worked with Dr. Bean, Dr. Germain, and I to come up with a schedule essentially moving forward of how we're going to get this work done. And what it does is it takes into consideration assessing the budget, assessing the constraints that come with that budget, establishing a short list of priorities that we could embed in a schedule moving forward, taking those recommendations back to this same committee, taking the recommendations to the teachers to begin to build a schedule for next year. The time frame on that is, from this point in time, a very short timeline. We know that it was all started very late last year, and we were working well into August to try and get a viable schedule. The schedule that DM Group has laid out for us has all of this work that I've just spoken about occurring between now and June. So in that May-June time range, we can be actually building the schedule. So that hopefully, one of the things they talked about in the meeting last week in response to a question from one of the individuals in the room was, yes, the vision is before we leave school at the end of this year to have a draft in place.
So over the past few months, when we've met with the group, the same issues have come up. They want more art, they want TI, homeroom, targeted assistance, put back in the morning. But I constantly want to go back to what was our goal with the schedule. Our goal with the schedule was to get rid of the tracking, get heterogeneous groupings back into our clusters, create a consistent, equitable, exploratory program for all kids. Those were our two big goals. The other thing is, as long as I've been in education, the schedule was always developed at the school level. I never had to come in front of a school committee and talk about my schedule. So I think that has added a lot of, stress to this process. But anyways, I'll go back to what's come out of the community meetings. The group that met, which was a larger group this last time than what has been meeting with the other dates, the need for special education teachers, going back to a 5-day rotation, again, the heterogeneous grouping, the language, art, and music. Already mentioned homeroom, going back to the morning with the targeted intervention, more EL support and interventions specifically for students with significant needs, and that specialists be available for the intervention groups. So those were the pieces that came out of the group that met with us last week, which was pretty similar to what was mentioned in the other dates from the small group, and then this last week, a little bit larger group with more parent representation at the group.
Mrs. Boland.
I just want to remind you that I understand that maybe the developing of the schedule's not, part of our prerogative. What is part of it, though, is if it affects the curriculum and what's being taught. The curriculum comes under our, and so this seriously affected the curriculum, as does the eight block schedule that they're going to do at the high school.
My question is really,
I don't know, that's something, okay, I wasn't sure if they were trying to respond to Becky's comment. Okay, Mrs. Neary.
my question is on all of those things that have come through from the last two meetings. Is there something that is objectionable to you as educators, or is this, so the 5-day rotation, heterogeneous grouping, I can't read my own handwriting, TI, EL support, is all of that acceptable to the building principal, and is it acceptable to the teachers?
Some of those items were pieces that were in the old schedule.
Okay.
So they are things that we are used to, if you will. If we're looking to make adjustments, we need to be careful how far backwards we go in those things. But certainly some of those things are pieces that we could look at including in a schedule moving forward.
Right, I guess that's what I'm getting to, is there any way to incorporate some or all in a new schedule, or pieces of some of it in a new schedule?
Absolutely.
Right, that's really, because I will agree with Mrs. Boland, these things do affect, they do affect curriculum, and then we hear from parents. and so that's why we're asking you. I mean, we understand, at least I understand, that it lives at the building level, the creation of the schedule, but that schedule means curriculum, and that does affect us, it affects parents, it affects students, and they ask us to follow up, so we follow up. It's not always necessarily you have something to bash you about, we just need to follow up, so we can also go back to our parents and say, here's what's happening.
Ms.
So,
Boatwright?
so I guess I have to just add in there that we do want the curriculum to go forward in a positive way to be 21st century for our students. That is the goal, and so we appreciate you getting this straightened out. Thank you.
Thank you. Question on the,
I'm gonna let
oh, yeah.
Mr. Kutzjohn would like to, now might be a good time because you may bring up other questions or discussion.
Thank you again for giving me an opportunity to speak. Just wanted to dovetail with our two administrators stated there. So basically what we did at this last meeting was kind of like a reboot, okay? There were a lot of people in the room representing administrators, many, many parents, some teachers as well. It was a good start again. I thought the DM group that you hired did a good job in terms of moderating, keeping everyone focused. Our next task is to roll up our sleeves and to actually start writing a schedule, whether it's 5 days, 6 days, 10 days, it doesn't matter to me. None of that matters. And as I wrote down what Mrs. Sullivan just said, and I agree with her. Can't go back too far, but we can't have what we have this year. Like many things in life, somewhere in the middle lies the answer to this. However, one thing I just told the superintendent that I was going to say, and anyone who knows me knows that I basically say the same thing to everybody, which is a good thing, I suppose, but sometimes it gets me in trouble. So I said we need to really do a needs assessment at TMS. Look at the truth. We always say it's going to be about the children. We can't, I realize we have a budget deficit. I'm well aware of that. That's not an elephant, it's a mammoth. So with that in mind, we still have to construct ideally what we can. That day, I asked both Dr. Bean and Mr. Gomes if we had a rough draft of our budget. Both of them said, in other words, we were looking at budget constraints that day, but I wasn't seeing any yet. There's nothing in front of me showing that we have any constraints on this committee right now. So it's kind of a cart and horse situation that we're in because we're asked to come up with a schedule that's within a budget that we don't have yet, but that meets the needs of our students. You see the quandary we're in? So we're going to do the best we can, but the needs should drive the budget, not the budget driving the needs. And what I mean by that is, for the few of us who are left here, or anyone who watches that camera that's not on me right now, or what gets written in the Newport Daily News, needs to understand that we, as a collective group of parents, students, teachers, administrators, school committee members, if we want the city council to fund the district appropriately, after many years in the past of level funding, then we have to, line by line, clarify what we want and why we want it and why we need it. I'm going to leave you with this. It's a statistic from our STAR data. At the beginning of the year in September, we had 119 children who were in need of improvement in reading. With the current schedule in place, there are currently, according to the STAR data, there are over 200. So something has to change now. Okay? That's fact. So let's roll up our sleeves. Let's work together cohesively. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
I have a question, just a comment toward him, that I always will and always will disagree when people say level funding. The reason it was level funded, let's be crystal clear, look up the records, people, that we went from 3,000 kids down to 2,000 kids. And when you do that, that's your staffing being reduced from 300 down to 200 and change. So yes, you were level funded for a few years there going through, but there's no question in your mind, you didn't need it when you're reducing, as Mrs. Boatwright and everybody else says, 85%, 87% of your costs was in staffing. When you go from 300 teachers down to 220, it's big money there.
But here's where I'm going to rebut you, Mr. Leary, and you and I are friends.
That wasn't until you spoke.
As you've read in the past, the Berkshire Report, the Bispano Report, and any other report that was commissioned by this city, they also told you that the district would change. You have many more needs now than you ever had back then, okay? So I'm going to come back at you with that. That's a fact. Go look at the demographics before, when you're talking about in the days of the cheese, as my grandmother used to say, to now. Much different, okay? Your ELL population here is now skyrocketing. That's a fact. Okay, so we're not comparing apples and apples, Mr. Leary. Although I will agree with you, the population has gone down, the needs have shot up tremendously. That's just where we're at in today's day and age.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I have no problem with that.
Okay.
My problem is that level funding, there was a period of 2006, 2007, 8, 9, wherever those years were. Please look up the records. You will see that the student population had dropped. Why would you ask the council for $1 million when you had the money already there, when you reduced the
Gentlemen,
staff?
I'm going to step in and just ask, we have a couple of items coming up that you
That's
guys
fine.
can debate budget all you'd like, but I want to get through the
I
TMS,
agree with you,
so-
Mr. Gomes. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Any other questions? Yep, Mrs. Neary.
Just one more question, and you addressed it yesterday, but I was hoping there'd be more people today, but you could say the same thing. For the students, so back to the report, the report card, and specifically the ELA score and the math score, there were students that you mentioned who were essentially just on the fence. They were one question away from being proficient. What is happening with those students? Like concretely, what is happening with those? So since you've identified them, what is happening with those students to move them up to that extra point?
So we are, as you said, we talked about this yesterday, we are transitioning our Power Hour to a Power Up scenario where we're not only addressing improvement in scores, but also improvement in the motivation to get those better scores and the stamina to sit through them. Because one of the things that we find is not only do they miss that one question necessarily because they didn't know the answer, but in many cases, the stamina to sit and work their way all the way through that test is higher than where they are. So we have always done some level of test prep. All of our teachers have access to their scores. They've always, for a number of years now, have had that access through RIDE, and we're using those for the next several weeks. It'll be about 10 sessions before we hit our first test session to work with the students to provide them with those extra boosts in all three of those areas.
And will it be then 3 periods or 1 or 2? Or how are you transitioning?
3 in a 6-day cycle.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Did somebody down? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Next item up is 7.2, which is recommendation of the Finance Advisory Subcommittee.
Okay.
Mr. Vance.
Yep, I am. So that's me.
Yes, Ms. Boatwright.
Right. So the Finance Advisory Committee has met on the 2019 budget. We were supposed to do it last month, but we now need to do it this month so that we can do the budget for 2020. We need to make the transfer. So we as a committee voted and we agree with the transfers that are on the current spreadsheet that we have, that we transfer the items that are in the far right column that will create a new budget. So there's an original budget and a new budget with transferred items. And we really need to make that approval tonight so that the budget can be changed and then we can get a working 2020 budget. So it's critical that we do that. I will say that the school department and the department heads and principals have been working very hard to reduce numbers in the budget so that we are not, and we're continuing to work with them on that to try to get it down as far as we can. There's still lots of things in the encumbered area as well as reserved area, and we've asked the superintendent to work with all her people to try to look at even those items to make sure that some of those might be released at this point in time. But we do need to make that, we need to vote on the approval of those transfers. We can either do that now, or you can do that when the expenditure report comes up. Okay.
So the appropriate time would be when those come up in the,
Thank you.
in the expenditure report.
All right.
These are discussion items. Any questions? Discussion? Thank you.
Okay.
Next item is 7.3, again, Ms. Boatright, on the fiscal 2020 budget priorities.
Right. So we have received many of the items that have been put forward by the different schools and department heads and so on, along with recommendations of need to do's because of regulatory reasons, both federal and state and so on, and it's going to be a very tight budget, I got to tell you yet again. So we're going to work very hard to come forth to the April meeting with a good budget, or maybe two options to go forward with for the school committee.
Any,
But I do need to make sure that people know here that there is a maximum that we are supposed to ask for from the city, which is 4%, which I got to tell you is going to be really hard to get to. I will just go back to Mr. Leary's comment, because I will say over the last 5 years, our enrollment did go up again, and this year, for the first time, it has come down a little bit. So we have seen significant growth, 11% actually, over the last 5 years, so, in student enrollment, which will also be part of our numbers.
any discussion or questions for Ms. Boatright on that? Comments? Ms. Neary?
Mrs. Boatright. She's not listening.
Say that, pardon me?
Oh, Mrs. Boatright, I just want to put on the record that I had asked if it was at all possible to do a budget for 2020, well, to have 3 iterations of the 2020 budget, so that one would show level funding, what would show everything we want, and one would show like a deficit funding, to be presenting that to the city council so that they can, on some level, see where the pain points are, if,
Right.
so that's just a request, if it's possible.
Yeah, if it's possible, we will, but we'll see. Thanks.
Any other questions, discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to 7.4, discussion on subcommittee appointments, which was a request of Mr. Leary on this agenda.
I just want to table that to next month. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. 7.5, update on Rogers High School schedule. I believe Mr. Vance, Ms. Neary.
Yeah, that was me. Essentially, I have the same question I had for Principal Sullivan, is where are you in the process? What's the adoption in terms of where your faculty are finding themselves in that process? And will you have something, when will you have something, when will you have something to show us and not show us, show them? I mean, I don't need to see it. I have a concern, and I said to the superintendent, I have a concern that the folks implementing the schedule are the teachers. Well, implementing it on a day-to-day basis. The principal puts a schedule together, but the teachers are implementing that schedule. And I have a concern that there is not enough buy-in to the schedule being offered, from what I understand. And I really want to avoid what happened with Thompson at the beginning of this year. So any kind of update you can give us on where you are, the buy-in of teachers?
So we had
I mean,
a faculty meeting at the beginning of February, and we showed the schedule and discussed it at that faculty meeting to the group. There were some questions and some discussion around certain parts of the schedule, things that people liked from old schedules and things that they liked about the schedule that we were proposing. So in the end, we were looking to move forward with the 4x4 and then have the Monday with the 8-period schedule. So what we're doing right now is we're collecting course requests from kids. So Thompson, our students at the high school, and then we're also working with Follett, who's the company that oversees our database that helps us build our schedule to actually build the structure into the database and start entering kids so we can look at what kind of courses are we offering, what are the courses that have been chosen, how are we going to build that into the schedule, what is the rotation going to be like, and then we have to make sure that we drop kids in and so that they have a full schedule and meet all the requirements that they need towards graduation.
Okay. Any truth to what I've heard is that there are actually fewer instructional minutes in the new schedule than there is now?
So there are, and so the conversation has been more about not necessarily the quantity of minutes, but the quality of instruction. So with the 46-minute block of time, the transition in and then transition out from class takes anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes off of the instructional period. So then their teachers are left with 26 minutes, really. With the block schedule, you have those same transition times, and in an 80-minute block, they're going to end up having anywhere between 70 to 60 minutes worth of instructional time. So you can have much richer activities that kids can really get invested in. Having that length of time per period also allows us to implement our AP curriculum with Fidelity. It allows us to get into art, projects and things without having to break down immediately. It allows our career tech programs to run with Fidelity. It allows all of our county kids to come in midday. The schedule that we're proposing meets the needs of all of our students without having to make any kind of minor changes. Even the schedule that we ran with this year, we had to make some minor tweaks for certain kids around culinary. So, the schedule that we're proposing is fair and equitable to all students.
And I know Mr. Leary's brought that up a couple times, and so I'm going to bring it up as well. And I think I emailed you about that as well. What about our most truant students in terms of again, I understand what you're explaining to me, that there's really 26 minutes, that seems 10 minutes here, and it seems a lot to me to transition from one classroom to another. I mean, at Salve, we schedule 15 minutes, and they can get from one end of the campus to the other end of the campus. So that seems like a lot, but I'm not in a high school, so I don't know. But I'm worried, again, about instructional time for those students when they're missing it. So that's, if they're already missing and we're reducing instructional time, they're not learning now, clearly, because they're not attending or they're late.
So
There's even fewer minutes potentially fewer minutes for next year's schedule. So how are they catching up? Like, how will they catch up?
So that's where we're building in a learning center, right? So that's a time during the day, during a student's schedule. It wouldn't be every day, but during a student's schedule, they have an opportunity where they could potentially meet with teachers. They could get intervention, and they could receive ramp up during that time. So it allows some of that catch up. It also allows our kids that are a little more responsible, that are on top of their work, gives them time throughout the day to get things completed. One of the things that we've heard from students pretty regularly is that with the present schedule, they have no time to do anything during the school day, and then they go from sports into a job or babysitting, and so this helps to build, take that stress off of the table for them as well. The truant students that we're talking about, that's why we have crew, right? And next year, crew is going to be a longer block of time, so we can get into different kinds of activities, so that we can start to really build that relationship even stronger. We've done some good work this year with crew and some of the work that's happening in that, and so next year, with the increase of time, it gives us an opportunity to actually grow that program even further.
So there's an increase in time in crew?
Correct.
For next year?
Correct.
Does crew count as instructional time?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know, okay.
pacing guides going to be finished by June? Just because, I mean, pacing guides would be important because teachers are going to have to move from, you know, an 80-minute period to a, you know, like for a long period. And so I hear what you're saying about they're going to be more in depth, but there still is a certain amount of material that has to be gotten through. And if you don't have a pacing guide for, say, algebra, you know, they're going to, it's going to be very difficult to get through the material that we need to get through. And I guess I brought these up before about the pacing guides.
I would think from teaching and learning, with the pacing guide, working with the department chairs, the assistant superintendent will have something posted or
Right, I'm just
create
bringing it up
that,
because I
so
think it needs to get
I can
done.
I'll follow up.
Follow up on that, 'cause
I'll
I-
follow up on that.
And I think one last question, so you've presented it to the faculty and they've, you know, some like it, some don't like it, combinations. And you've presented it to the students as well, or no? I was just wondering,
So the finished product that we're looking at right now, we haven't formally presented to students. We've had conversations with kids to hear what they're interested in, and there are some that like the traditional model because that's what they're used to, while others are looking for something more.
right, well, only because we all talk a lot about engaging the students, making sure, you know, at one point, you're the principal and you'll set a schedule and that'll be the schedule, right? But
Right.
we talk about involving the students, especially at the high school, they're a little older, trying to engage them, trying to have them have a sense of their own education. So I was just wondering if they'd seen it, that's all. I mean, I have no feel. I mean, ultimately, you'll give them a schedule and they'll follow it, but.
Right, so some of that not formally presenting it to kids would be if we had to change course, right? So then we're having multiple conversations about what it looks like. We will present to the kids what it's gonna look like in a more formal
And
fashion.
the parents?
Yep, parents have been involved. I've had a lot of conversation with our PTO around that schedule. We started that in December, those conversations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for indulging me.
Mr. Leary.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to schedule in, as Mrs. Bowen said, it goes to instructional time in the curriculum. So I would like to have this for an action item next month on the agenda. I know it's not action night because I am not for the schedule for numerous reasons, and I've been through them over and over, and I want to know the essence of time with 15 minutes left and we're done. I'd like to have this an action item if we could for next month. I want the public to know where I stand.
I believe, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead.
All right,
Why not?
thank you. I believe, Mr. Leary, you've been very clear, you do not support a 4x4 because of attendance, and you believe it's going to exacerbate the problem. I don't know if it's because of a block that we have an attendance problem. I believe any kind of schedule we have is not directly tied into our attendance problem. Our attendance problem has multiple factors to it, including student engagement, about students knowing or wanting the importance of education, the ability to get to school, transportation. We've got social emotional needs, we've got family needs. Chronic absenteeism is, and especially with one at a high school like Rogers, it's more than the high school. It's also a community problem. And I think we have to do more outreach to the community. It's not just about the high school. It's about the community, and we need to work with the community in order to do that. So whether you have a 4x4 or whether you have a 7-period schedule, it's not going to make any difference about the attendance. I'm hearing you about the contact with the teacher. Again, I don't know if it's going to make any improvements. And I don't believe it is the purview of the school committee. Curriculum is, but not the schedule.
So I would think that we're tying this into a curriculum change. So I would like to be a vote for this. If it's going to be denied, that's fine, you know?
Well, I can assure, so I'm not cutting anybody off, but I'm going to step in here
Yep.
because
We have 2 minutes left.
we are approaching 9:15. We have 15 minutes. There's some things we have to get through. I'm sure we haven't heard the end of this debate in one form or another, and how we move forward will be determined. we'll take that into consideration. Any other quick questions for Mr. Vance? If not, we're going to move on to, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, drive carefully.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move that the consent calendar consisting of items 8.1 through 8.4 be approved.
We'll have to, unfortunately, if we can pull 8.2 out and approve, and move to 8.1, 8.3, and 8.4 as a group, there is a couple of changes we have to make to 8.2 that, so if the motion were to approve 8.1, 8.3, and 8.4 as presented, that would be proper at this time?
What I'm moving.
Okay. Motion by Mrs. Sylvia to approve 8.1, 8.3, and 8.4. There's a motion and a second by
Oh, what's the name?
Dr. Flowers. I apologize. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to vote no because I have some concerns with the invoices, so I'll vote no.
Very good. Any other questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Six.
And then I just have some I want to pull out on 8.2 before somebody makes the motion.
Okay, so 8.2,
So I would like to pull the appointments number 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22.
hold on.
Hold it.
I have to write this down, as you said.
Yeah,
16 through 21.
16 through 22.
You would like to pull
this is
A?
on, okay.
Yes. it's
So first of
appointments.
all, A20 has been withdrawn from the consent agenda for this evening. So A20 has taken care of itself. So you would like to pull A17, 18, 19, 21, and 22 for discussion?
And number 16.
And 16.
A16, A17, A18, 19, 21, and 22 for discussion.
Yes.
Okay? Any other amendments to the consent agenda? Seeing none, there would be a motion in order to, we could, I would say that we,
Can I just
Prove the
make
rest.
Can I ask a question? Because that report for the expenditure report, I want to make sure that we can vote on that to make those transfers. I'm not yes, we can, thank you.
We can do it.
You already voted on that.
No, we didn't. Remove it.
8.3.
8.3 has been approved in its entirety this evening,
Yeah,
and that was contained in it as 8.3. So that was approved this evening.
No, I was talking about
That's
doing the
invoices and
transfers.
requisitions.
For doing the transfers.
Transfers,
Transfers. we
8.4.
have-
that's coming up in,
8.4.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry.
8.1, 8.3, and 8.4 were approved as presented tonight.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, it's 10.1.
10.1.
So 10.1 we'll get to shortly.
But it's not, it's not a,
It's not.
it's an action item, it's
it's
not
10.1,
an action.
that comes under this.
If
already
you
approved it.
accept it as approved, you accept all those business reports as approved.
So let's stay with the order of business at hand, and it is the consent agenda 8.2. A motion is in order to approve the consent agenda as presented, with the exception of A 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, and 22. Is there a motion to
So-
approve the consent agenda as
So moved.
the motion? The personnel actions as part of the consent agenda, correct?
We've already adopted the other.
So moved.
So the motion's been made by Mr. Leary and seconded by Ms. Boatright. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. On the matter of A 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, and 22, motion would be in order to approve those as presented. You need to approve a motion in order to discuss them. So somebody will have to present a motion.
I will.
Motion made to accept A 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, and 22 is presented by Ms. Boatright. Is there a second?
Second?
Mrs. Sylvia, discussion on A 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, or 22.
I can make this pretty quick. We're in a deficit situation, and we have 85 aides in this district, and I understand that some of these are required by law, but I believe that shifts can be made. I will not put us into a bigger deficit. And it also says, as you read the backup, it says that funds are available for the cases, it says that funds are available. What they meant to say was that it was budgeted at one time, but there are no funds left, okay? So everybody needs to understand, we're going further into debt when we approve these, or we're also able to cut the debt a little bit if we don't approve. So I won't be supporting any of them.
Mr. Leary, do you have a question?
No, I don't. Mr.
I
Chairman.
do have a question for Dr. Colley, if I could ask on
Okay.
I had a question on A16 as part of this.
Okay, can I just make a statement?
You sure can.
All right. The paraeducators that are listed in this, for the schools are required by the IEPs. Teachers need those. The other one is the long-term substitute social worker at Thompson Middle School. They need their social worker, and they are in the budget. I understand what Ms. Boland is saying about we have a deficit, and maybe perhaps if we don't hire these people, we can lower our deficit. That's most likely true, but I'm just sharing with you that these are the needs of the school.
I get that, but the social worker could be continued to be a substitute social worker. That's where you've got to list.
It is a substitute.
That's what
It
it
is a
is.
substitute.
Right, but we don't need to approve a substitute. No.
You have asked in the past that when you hire people like this to replace someone, one person, we do this.
Dr. Colley, my question on A16, it's a custodian position. We had this pulled last month, and the concern at the time was similar to Mrs. Boland's concern, is that we are currently filling this with a temporary or the fill-in part-time custodians. Cost-wise, does it make sense to continue that trend of doing it with fill-in custodians or to hire this position? I know the money's in the budget as explained, I get that, but the most economic choice for us, is it to continue to fill in the custodian with the replacements or to appoint this position? In your opinion.
If you go with a substitute, most of the time you will save some money. However, you do have a couple of things that you may run into, again, your prerogative. You do have language in the contracts that basically suggests that you shouldn't let positions just go into substitute mode for the rest of the year just because it's convenient or cheap. So that may be something you want to consider. The other piece is when you do have custodians or any kind of sub that you leave the position open like that and you rely on subs to come in and do the work. Sometimes the subs are not available because they're not always just waiting by the phone to be called in. But yes, it would save a little bit of money. Right now, I just did an analysis today of overtime and substitute for facilities, and they're tight, so you could swing one way or the other. I'm hoping we don't see any more snow, so there's no more overtime required, and no things break that require overtime. So in that sense, you're very tight. Could you? Conceptually, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to approve A16, 17, 18, 19, 21, and 22 as presented. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to monthly correspondence, very quickly. We have monthly correspondence. We have one correspondence, and it's from the Parade Committee, and they're requesting the use, it's a standard yearly letter, they request the use of Rogers High School parking lots on Saturday, March 16th, to run a free shuttle from the beginning of the parade route to the end, and we have provided this for them as a good partner to the city the last 5 years. So there's a correspondence thanking us and requesting that again. That's it on correspondence. Next is expenditure reports and, reports from the superintendent. First one is 10.1, which is expenditure and revenue reports. Dr. Colley.
Many of you were there for the Finance Subcommittee. However, just to recap, we are trying to rebalance the budget, at least the salaries and benefits. I'm working with the city to project out what the cost will be for everybody's salaries and benefits and make sure that the monies are in the correct accounts. That's why we're requesting the shifts between the departments that you see before you. I want to thank some of the members of the subcommittee because they caught that I missed some. When you cut and paste in a spreadsheet, sometimes you miss the calculations. So we had to redo it. The one you have in front of you is correct. I've gone 3 times over it. And what you see, however, is as we go through the rest of the year, you're going to find that certain things that would be required of you would eventually increase the deficit unless decisions are made to not spend certain things that are already scheduled to be spent. Kind of what Ms. Boatwright had said in terms of looking at all the encumbrances and even the requests and decide whether some of them can be postponed, not done. It'd be the only way to reduce this. So as I go through the budget, you will notice that from last month to this month, we've gone up about, $60,000. It'll be more based on at least one of the items on the requests that weren't included in this because it just hit my door this last week. $85,000 for replacement. So those kind of things, as they continue to happen, hopefully there'll be less of them, will increase the deficit built into this budget at this point. I want to be clear that this was not a deficit that was created from the very beginning. In other words, it's not a structural deficit. It was not here when we first put the budget together. This has been due to additions that have happened over the course of this year because of things that have happened that we did not know nor could we had planned back in June. In fact, when we did the cuts in June, we should have seen perhaps a surplus. That surplus went away when we discovered that some of the positions were not accounted for last year, but even then we were at a neutral point in the game. When we start seeing new kids coming in, kids going out to different placements, tuitions that we didn't expect even for kids who are not in special ed, those were the things that are driving this deficit at this point. The one ray of sunshine that I can point to is we did see a little bit of more money in terms of tuitions for NACTAC, an additional $85,000, perhaps a little more over the course of the year. We did see a couple of things that last month we said we would research. One of them is the E-rate. When we sat down with the technology department last year, basically I asked how much money could we see as a reduction or as a savings, usually portrayed as a revenue stream through E-rate. Unbeknownst to me, they changed the way they actually applied for it to be, instead of we pay and get reimbursed, the companies send us just our part of the bill. The rest of the bill they send directly to the federal government, and we don't even see it. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to account for that in the revenue side, so that's why you have a reduction there. Even then, with the $185,000 additional funding, we see a little bit of more money coming in this year than we expected. We also have, and that'll be in the other report with the grants, where last year, if you recall, there was a lot of discussion with the state as to the impact of students moving in from countries and regions where we had some natural disasters, and they basically got some information from us, data that we report to them. They made some calculations, and basically they sent us $62,000 that we're going to apply to some of our increases, for example, the additional ESL teachers. However, that's only a 1 year, so this will have to be absorbed in next year's budget, so it doesn't become a structural deficit. Questions?
Would we get the revenue you just mentioned?
We
Would we
just
get
got
that
it.
next- But would we get it next year if we also had students that came? This is a one-time, not happening. So new students coming in next academic year?
No.
No.
I mean, they will be added to our tally of students, and depending on their background, depending on their needs, we'll see that added to our regular calculations that they have for generating our state aid. But that one was just an extra one on top of, that had nothing to do with the regular calculations for state aid.
So, the question is, you're recommending that we transfer, or are you stating that you will transfer in this report? Because, can we vote on this? We can't really vote on this in a area where it's just a report, or can we?
The issue is this, I can leave it the way it is. However, the city will be having a really hard time because they also want to see a budget that fits the format of Lawson,
Correct.
so that they can see the money where it belongs. Part of the issue here was, when we put this budget together last year, we were doing it based on the staff we had at the time and where they were.
We understand all that. We're just trying to figure out if we can vote on that at this point in time. Can we?
We'd have to make a recommendation, you would have to make a recommendation, we'd have to do it at a subsequent meeting at this point. I mean, we can do that, we can have a special meeting.
Okay, we need to have a special
We need an
meeting to do that, because I made the recommendation in
Well, we'll work
previous.
So two things are gonna happen right here in the next couple of minutes, unfortunately. One is we'll make sure that the budget gets to where it needs to be, whether it's a special meeting or not. We'll take care of that aspect. I'm gonna ask at this point, seeing as our time has expired for the meeting, that we accept the reports of the superintendent in their entirety as presented to us, along with 11.1, the meeting dates. A motion for those.
So moved.
Second? Dr. Flowers, made by Mrs. Sylvia, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Any discussion?
I just have a clarification, Mr. Chair. So am I hearing that the committee accepts the report as presented
Yes,
Correct.
by Dr. Colley?
yes.
We accept the report as presented.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I don't accept his report as
Okay,
presented.
no, that's very fine.
I know we're out of time.
Nope, that's fine. Motion was 6-1. Next would be a motion to adjourn, seeing as we have no business for executive session this evening.
Okay, Mr. Chair, may I at this time thank Dr. Colley?
Yes.
This will be Mr. Colley's last school committee meeting with us. Well, possibly not, that's true. But I just wanted to thank Dr. Colley for all his help and huge efforts in helping us to get all our spreadsheets and everything. Lawson, we have the 3 databases all matching, and working with the city in order to get this done. It was a huge task, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Colley.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve.
So the motion to adjourn is before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.